They were lucky to escape with their lives.
Some things shouldn't be disturbed.
Something alien.
He cut that poor girl in half while she was still alive. You have any idea the terror that kid went through? She was still alive, for Christ's sakes.
The campus class? Oh, that's not nice. I think he's a sugar plum.
Down, girl. You know what they say about sugar.
Bye.
Yeah, take
What do they say
care.
about sugar?
Poor Willard, the gardener who found the body. Imagine, he still hadn't found the head.
What are the pectorals?
My friends all laugh at me.
They say mine are funny.
Something I eat. Bad chop suey. So long. Take it easy.
1 and 2.
Bastard!
4, 5.
Bastard!
8 and 1, 2.
Bastard!
Hi, this is Kelly Maroney from Shopping Mall and the Zero Boys, and you are listening to The Hysteria Continues.
Yes, welcome back. Oh, sorry there, Kelly. Welcome back to The Hysteria Continues, episode 28, and it's a very special episode for us. Not only are we covering Pieces, which is one of the, the biggest cult slasher movies of all time, but it's also our first birthday, an anniversary. And so, without further ado, welcome the birthday boys. How are you doing, Erik?
I'm very good. I have to say that was one of the best audio montage intros we've had. It was just chock-a-block full of cheesy nuggets.
Oh, indeed. And actually, in the background, I'm going to play a little treat for us. This is Sarita's from the first episode, because the first episode was Happy Birthday to Me, and this is the closing theme to Happy Birthday to Me. So, as you can see, professional as ever.
Of course.
How are you doing, Nathan?
I'm doing very well. And you know, Justin, the most beautiful thing in the world is smoking pot and fucking on a waterbed at the same time.
I know. It's a wonderful image, mental image. And I'm sure, as Erik is saying, Pieces is chock-a-block with quotable dialogue, and we'll be listening to some of that a little bit later. And Joseph, how are you doing?
I am great, and I just want to say I'm impressed we made it to 1 year, and I'm not easily impressed. Wow, a blue car!
Indeed. Yeah, can you believe we are 1 year old? 1 year old, yes. Even. That is quite impressive, isn't it? Because there is a lot of podcasts around, but not many of them get to the grand old age. Who knows? Do you reckon we'll still
I'm
be
impressed with our regularity. It's like we've been eating all brand for the entire year. Every 2 weeks, we haven't failed to bring out a podcast.
Exactly. I know
every 2 weeks we've never failed to take it to the toilet.
No.
Yes, and there may be some more of that coming up. Who knows? We're also going to be talking, as usual, about our recently seen. And this time we're going to be discussing top 3 horror films from the past 10 years. Non-slasher horror movies, that is, from the past 10 years. Our top 3. So that will be coming up pretty shortly. I can guess, should we start with recently seen? How about you, Erik? What have you been watching?
Okay, well, first of all, I'll just say something I've been listening to is that it's welcome return of a podcast, which may be our competition, I'm not sure, Mondo Movie. They went on a hiatus in December of 2010, but they've just published yesterday or the day before their latest podcast, and they discuss the new Blu-ray of Intruder. So it's of special interest there to horror fans. I urge you to check that out. In terms of what I was watching, I watched actually a film called Manny's Orphans the other day. It's not a horror film, but it has a slasher pedigree running through it. It's Sean S. Cunningham's film, the one he made prior to Friday the 13th. He did 2 family type films that year. The other one was Here Come the Tigers. This one is Manny's Orphans. It's about a guy who coaches a soccer team at an orphanage whilst also struggling with a local mobster who he owes money to, and it culminates in a soccer match that's make or break for him. If they win, his debt is reneged, and everyone goes off happily ever after. And I think you can guess which way it goes. It's very fluffy, very inconsequential and uneventful. It's not something I'd ever watch again. It wasn't diabolically awful or anything. It was just boring, I thought. The only reason I watched it is because it had Ari Lehman as one of the child actors in it. He, of course, was the very first Jason in Friday the 13th. He's the one who drags Adrienne King under the water. What I didn't realise when I was watching it was that it also features cameos, like blink and you miss them cameos, by Harry Manfredini, who did the score for the Friday films, and Victor Miller, who wrote the screenplay for the first Friday. So I thought it was just curious just to see, Sean Cunningham's beginnings before he hit it big with Friday the 13th. That also led me on to having a little mini Friday the 13th marathon myself, because I was thinking about going to London last Friday week to see the big screenings of parts 1 to 4 in the Prince Charles Cinema, but various things got in the way. So I had my own DVD screening at home. I watched parts 1 to 3. I actually watched 3 with the DVD commentary. I don't know if any of you guys got the From Crystal Lake to Manhattan box set that came out, I think it was 2004, but the version of part 3 on that had a commentary with Richard Brooker, Dana Kimmel, Larry Zerner, and Peter Bracke. And there's they tell a great story about I think it's Rachel Howard is the actress's name, who plays Chili. And the scene where she's running up and down the stairs going, oh my God, Shelley's dead. You have to agree, it's probably not the best acting.
No.
And they kind of gloss over it by saying, oh, poor Rachel, she just wasn't feeling very well that day.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Is that commentary not on the recent re-release?
No, the recent one didn't come with the commentary for some reason. There must have been a legal problem putting it on or something. But it's an interesting listen. Of course, Dana Kimmel's going on as if she's Meryl Streep, saying, yeah, they called me up and they said they really wanted me for the role, blah, blah, blah.
And did she talk about the her guppy face at the end?
No.
It's like it wasn't quite Sophie's choice, was it? Really, her acting in that. But we'll gloss over that. Have you been watching anything else?
Lots and lots of things that I can't think of off the top of my head. But cool. Go to Joseph or Nathan.
Yeah. Okay. Well, how about you, Joseph? What have you been watching?
Well, I watched the AIP Project movie from 1995 called Mutant Species. I had seen it before. It's a complete ripoff of Predator. It's directed by David Pryor and stars his brother Ted from Killer Workout and Sledgehammer. And basically these soldiers, NASA or the government ships this canister to the moon to destroy it because it has like this crazy DNA in it that'll transform people if it comes in contact with them into like bloodthirsty killers. And they send it to the moon to destroy it. Why they couldn't just throw it into a fire pit, I don't know. But basically the rocket crash lands in like rural Georgia. And so they send this military team to, go retrieve it. And Leo Rossi, who plays the commanding officer, gets infected, and he basically turns into this 9-foot-tall, like Labrador retriever who drools. And he starts killing off the soldiers one by one. And it's extremely hilarious, but it's very entertaining. There's a scene where the hero, played by Ted Pryor, comes in contact with the monster, and he has him in his sights with a gun. But rather than shoot him, he gets his one-liner, and he's just like, "Have you looked in a fucking mirror lately, pal?" And then later, there's a scene where he's trying to reason with the monster, and there's all this heartfelt, sappy music playing, and then the monster, who was obviously a former soldier, salutes him. It's really insane. It's just really silly, but I don't know. It's extremely entertaining if you can find it. Like I said, it's a complete rip-off of Predator, right down from the soldiers listening to the classic rock music to one of them. One of them is basically just Jesse Ventura personified, and he's played by Jackson Bostwick from The Prey. But it's like a who's who of old 80s slasher film alumni, and it's bad, but like I said, it's really entertaining.
Cool. Okay, I hadn't heard of that one before, but sounds like it might be worth.
It's from 1995.
Okay. Cool. And anything else?
Yeah. Last night we watched The Gates of Hell and Clown House.
Quite a double bill.
Yeah. Watching Gates of Hell again, I liked it even more, but watching Clown House again, I don't know. I mean, it's got some moments, but it has that stigma to me. I mean, every time I see something happening on screen, I can't forget, what happened behind the scenes, so it kind of tainted it for me. So, and that's pretty much it.
All right. And did you have any interruptions during your viewings, or have you?
No, it was rather quiet last night, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because they were sleeping.
Oh, right. Okay. Fair enough. Did you put some kind of like a sort of pillow over their faces or anything like that?
I'll save that for next weekend.
Did you syringe some kind of a paralyzing fluid into their tea?
Maybe it was like in Linda Day George in Pieces.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yes,
yeah.
They don't drink tea, Eric. Not everyone drinks
sorry.
tea.
Well, you should be.
Sorry, whatever you drink in America, then.
Yeah.
I think he was drinking some kind of, was it a Mountain Dew, like a red Mountain Dew?
Fanta.
Fanta, yes, Fanta, whatever that is.
Alcohol on a Friday
I don't
night. My goodness. Can you imagine such a thing, Eric?
Like a teenage disco.
It is, yeah. No booze allowed. Right, okay. Well, thanks, Joseph, for your temperance Friday nights thing. So how about you, Nathan? Were you on the Mountain Dew as well?
I drank Mellow Yellow.
Oh,
I like Mountain Dew, though, but it's just I saw Mellow Yellow. It's just like Mountain Dew. It's just a different company makes it.
I thought that wasn't acid. Didn't they do acid that was Mellow Yellow? Isn't that what Donovan was singing about?
That's
what Donovan was singing about. He wasn't singing about the drink.
No. Sorry, I'm not saying you were taking acid last night, Nathan.
Well, the drink drops.
Yeah, because I don't want to get arrested for what I was doing last night.
Although it would explain your love for Criminally Insane Part 2.
Yes. And also
Death Nurses.
And also the old Confederate massacre, parts 1 to 3.
Actually, that's my recently seen.
Yes, and
is the old Federal Massacre trilogy.
Yes.
Which is very frightening.
It is. It's terrifying in many ways. So, what else have you seen, Nathan? Were you watching the same things?
Yes, I was watching the same things. I watched the Intruder Blu-ray, which it's really good. It's got a lot of great special features, and I love Intruder, so I had to have it.
Did you get the bonus disc?
No.
Oh.
No, that was only available if you. No, it was only available if you ordered it via Synapse's website, and it was limited to something like ridiculous, like 500 copies or something.
Right, because it's like a work print, wasn't it, or something?
Yeah,
work print.
I never get the good stuff.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. But anyway, enough of that. Have you anything else?
Oh, I watched this movie that we almost watched last night called Born Bad. It is very laughably terrible.
Oh, I'm glad you said that.
It's awful in every conceivable way, and the acting, I cannot get over the acting in this movie. It's so overdone. Like, everybody in that movie overacts. You know, it's like watching me in one of my movies. It's like a bunch of people acting like I do. They're so ridiculous, and it's like you guys remember that movie Fear with Reese Witherspoon and Mark Wahlberg, where, you know, it's like it was made back in the 90s. Like, she meets him, and he's seems like a cool guy, but he turns out to be a psycho, and he, pretty much at the end, like, traps her and her family at their house. This movie is exactly the same. I mean, it follows that movie Fear, almost scene for scene, it seemed like. And
it's another one of those fill in the blanks from hell movies.
Right.
And it's Asylum.
Oh, it's Asylum.
Okay. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Oh, wow. I'm glad we didn't watch that.
Actually, I think we should, because I think it'd be hilarious.
You know, that would probably be a film Jamie would like.
Yeah, he'll probably love it, even though it's incredibly stupid.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Well, thank you, Nathan. I'm just going to quickly rounding off recent scene. I've been on an Italian kick, as I kind of usually am, I suppose. I've got to watch 3 that come to mind, and I won't spend long on them. But the first one was Phenomena, Dario Argento's Phenomena from 1984 or 85, depending on which date you listen to. And obviously, it's probably one we might cover at some point in the on the podcast. But it's got everything you could possibly want from a film. Kind of deformed dwarfs, chimps with razor blades, schoolgirls being menaced, Donald Pleasance in a wheelchair with a Scottish accent. I mean, it's got everything, really, plus the trademark Dario Argento camera set pieces, and it's probably his most whacked out film, and obviously a young Jennifer Connelly, and also Jennifer Connelly falling into a swimming pool full of dead bodies. it's probably, apart from Opera, it's one of his last kind of, as far as I can concerned, good films. Because I did actually also watch The Third Mother, the closing part of the Three Mothers trilogy, which was brought out a few years ago, which is as bad as I remember. And I can't remember if we spoke about that last time or not, but I was just talking to someone the other day and saying how I remember everyone going, oh, why won't he just finish and, close the Three Mothers trilogy before he dies? Or what a shame it would be if we don't get a third mother from him, and unfortunately we did. So, but the other, going back to the 70s, is The Queen in Red Kills Seven Times. I don't think I mentioned that last time, but another giallo, which delightfully wacky giallo, which has got a very early appearance from Sybil Danning, who gets a Hooters out, which I think I remember her doing that in Howling 2, didn't she? Which in slow motion,
and they're playing with fire. And every film she's been in.
Every film, yes.
She probably has a difficulty finding a bra and a blouse that will fit her, so she probably just has to go topless all the time.
Exactly.
She's one of those that has a clause in her contract that she has to get naked.
Even now, do you reckon? I think she still looks pretty good now, doesn't she? I've seen photos of her looking fairly, respectable, or considering she must be 105 now. But the other thing, the thing I love about Queen and Red Kills Seven Times is there's a photo fit of the killer. And the police or somebody's put together, and if you can imagine, like somebody got like a pop artist like Lichtenstein or someone like that. Is it Lichtenstein? But sort of like a really over the top pop artist to do photo fits in the 70s, and it just looks nothing like the killer, and it's just so ridiculous, but it's so kind of Italian and over the top, and that's great. Presumably, have you all seen that film?
Yes, excellent film.
Yes. And the other one I watched, which is complete polar opposite, really, is The Night Child by Massimo Dallamano, who I think he directed What Have They Done to Your Daughters? I think that was him. But anyway, it's got Richard Johnson who was in Beyond the Door, and also playing a art historian working for the BBC, who goes to Italy with his daughter Nicolette Elmi, who would be very familiar to anyone who watched any Italian horror movies in the 1970s. Very distinctive red-haired little girl, and she basically gets possessed by the spirit of a witch. But if you're looking for kind of Beyond the Door nose flute madness, it's not really here. But it's very beautifully shot film. It looks fantastic, but it's obviously inspired by The Omen, which this one came out in 75. I think was The Omen, maybe 76. But anyway, that kind of whole exorcist kind of possessed child subgenre that was banging around in the early 1970s. And it's kind of slow moving film, a bit like Argento's Inferno. But anyone else seen that?
I haven't seen that one. No. I'm aware of it though, but.
No, it's just something I just thought I'd check it out. It's not a great recommend, but it's a beautiful looking film, but quite slow. So well, that's what I've been watching. So
can I just interject one thing I meant to say about the Friday the 13th marathon in the Prince Charles Cinema. Apparently, it was quite successful, and they are now thinking of putting out parts 1 to 8 on a big marathon screening in July. So
really?
Keep your eyes peeled for that if you're based in the UK.
Because we were, me and Erik, we were talking about going up to that, weren't we? And various things got in the way. I'd still definitely be kind of up for doing that at some point. It's just that it's hugely expensive for both you and me to get to London and stay in London.
Staying in London is the problem. It's very expensive.
We were talking about how you two should fly over here for a Friday night at Grant.
That would be brilliant, yeah.
That would be great, yes. As long as we could, he's got an off switch.
Yes.
Okay. Right. Well, talking of what we've been watching, and talking recently seen, I kind of guess we're actually going to be talking about relatively recently seen, because what we're going to be talking about is our top 3 horror movies, non-slasher movies from the last 10 years. And actually, I think I don't know about you guys, but I found this easier than the 1990s. How about you?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Oh, much easier.
Yeah.
No.
No,
these are very popular. People are asking. People are like, "Well, you did the '90s, you did the '80s, you should do 2000." So that's why we did it, and I like it actually. It's kind of a break from slashers just a little bit. Not that that's bad. Not that that's a good thing.
No,
but
you have to have a little break sometimes, don't you? And Nathan, were you saying no?
Yes, I said no.
That's because you got in last to the party, didn't you? Because
when I finally I was at work, and when I finally found out what we were doing, you three already had your picks posted, and every one of you have a pick that I was going to use. So I had to
Johnny come lately.
Yeah, I had to just kind of makeshift something together of movies that I remember liking.
Oh well, we'll
better
see.
than not coming at all.
Yeah. Okay. Well, without further ado, let's start off with Joseph's number 3. Here we go.
Well, The Mist, I think, is terrific in every conceivable way, and I know we're going to have some disagreement here, but first off, let me say what I find scarier than the actual monsters in the film is the performance, or not the actual performance, but the character played by Marcia Gay Harden, I believe it's her name. She plays the religious zealot who basically, when they get trapped in the store, she thinks this phenomenon going on outside is basically God, coming to collect or something. So obviously she gathers a bunch of people on her side, and there's like this holy war inside between the non-believers and the believers. And that's more, terrifying than the actual creatures. But the actual creatures outside are pretty frightening too. I love the scene where they go into the pharmacy and they find one of the pharmacy techs or something is in a big cocoon, and then they get attacked by all these little spiders. I find that really creepy. And my favorite scene in the film is probably at the end where you can hear the Dead Can Dance song, and they're driving along, and then they hear that thump, thump, and they look up, and there's like this 900-foot tall creature just crossing the road. I love that shot. I mean, just the way they just framed that shot, and they're all just looking up like, wow. I'm not 100% sure how I feel about the downbeat ending, but I don't know. I think The Mist is a lot of fun. I love, being the whole thing of being trapped in a small, isolated, kind of claustrophobic location, and something trying to get in to kill them, and then they have that added bonus, like I said, of the whole holy war angle going on inside. So there's all kinds of tension coming from every angle. It's directed by Frank Darabont. Did the Shawshank Redemption? Was that right? Yeah. But yeah, it's just a really fun film. I know we got some disagreements coming up. Isn't that right, Erik?
That is right, yes. I'm probably the only person in the world who didn't fully embrace The Mist. It was an interesting thing because it opened in 2007, I think it was, in the States, and it was about a year before it made it over to the UK. So I saw it long after it had been released, and there was all this hype surrounding it, and I couldn't help but be disappointed. But my main problem is you said the scariest thing was the sort of religious battle going on within the supermarket. To me, that was the thing that bothered me the most. I mean, I liked the monster stuff. It was the drama I just couldn't buy into. I found it tedious and boring, and it's the same problem I had with The Walking Dead. It was the drama stuff that I found really forced and a bit soap opera-ish.
No,
I said you don't like soap operas, Erik?
I do like soap operas, but not in a horror film.
Okay.
I I don't hate The Mist. I just thought it was quite average after all the hype that had been that they're surrounded. But I know I'm in the minority of one, and I can see why people like it. It just wasn't for me. It's the same.
Go watch it again right now.
It's the same reason I didn't enjoy Walking Dead. I'm the only person, it seems, that didn't like It. The Stephen King miniseries. I thought that was dreadful. And I think a lot of it is for the same reasons. It's the drama stuff I found really just so tedious and cliched. I mean, that's kind of weird coming from a slasher movie fan, but you know what I mean.
I'll agree with you on The Walking Dead.
I agree with you on It because I love the first half when it deals with the kids, because I thought there was a lot of scary stuff in it. But when the second part of the miniseries where they're adults, I mean, I just got bored with it. I like the first one. The first part of the miniseries. Well, as far as Mist goes, I think I like the religious aspects because I know people like that. I grew up in one of these like crazy churches where they wanted to exorcise demons out of people and stuff. So it just seemed real to me.
Were you a prime candidate for exorcism, seeing as you made all those horror films, like The Federal Day Massacre?
I wasn't. I can't believe I wasn't struck by lightning sitting in that church.
Actually, funnily enough, just a very quick aside, but there's a great TV series I just called Cruel and Unusual Deaths, and it's basically kind of a real amalgamation of like Final Destination style deaths, and it has 3 mini reenactments, and one of them was a Bible salesman being struck by lightning on someone's doorstep when she opens the door, and he gets struck.
Oh man, I gotta see this.
And another one was a man who laughed so much at the Goodies, which I don't know if you ever knew about the Goodies in America, in the 70s in Norfolk, that he died of laughing. And so it's kind of strange. Another one put a lava lamp on the stove, and it heated because he's bored of waiting for it to heat up, and it exploded, and shards of glass went through his heart. And there's just all these strange kind of deaths, and it's just kind of it just reminded me. Sorry, that's reminded me the irony of the you saying about not being struck by lightning, Nathan, But yeah, I really like The Mist. I agree with Joseph. I especially like the ending, which I know a lot of people didn't like, but I know it got Stephen King's stamp of approval, didn't it? Because the book was far more, or the short story was far more ambiguous. Apparently, I haven't read it, but that's what I heard. The ending wasn't like the film. The film kind of took it to in one direction, but I thought that was really good.
True.
I do like the ending, I have to say. I thought that was very strong.
And I think apparently Frank Darabont, basically, the other thing that's been criticised a little bit, I think the film looks great. I haven't yet watched it in black and white, which I've got on the Blu-ray, which I'd like to do, because people have said it looks really good, because it gives you an option of watching it in colour or blue or black and white. But people are sort of saying the special effects were a little bit hokey in places, and apparently he had his budget slashed by quite a considerable amount of money because he wouldn't change the ending. But I really liked it, and I just thought, as far as Marcia Gay Harden, I thought was really good in her character, and I'm just surprised her character's not running for the Republican Party president at the moment. But there you go. So yeah, well, I want
to go ahead and agree with you on the. You were right about the special effects. I think for the most part, a lot of them are really fantastic, but that one scene where they're in the back, in the stock room of the store, and that tentacle comes through the bay door, I thought that looked really extremely fake. It looked extremely CGI, but everything else looked fair, I thought.
Well, that's apparently in the black and white version. If you watch it like that, with a kind of homage to them and all those kind of 1950s sci-fi films, then the special effects look better in black and white. Apparently that's what I've heard, and so I have to watch that. But well, no, thank you, Joseph. And coming up next, we're going to see what you've got from the bottom of the barrel, Nathan. This is your number 3.
Well, my number 3 is the reason we call our friend Grant, because the character, Michael Rooker's character in that movie, his name is Grant. So that's where we get that from. I do really love Slither, and I think I don't remember. I think it might have either bombed at the box office, or it barely broke even. Or
I think it did.
It bombed. I believe it bombed.
And it's a shame. It's a shame that it did, because it was a fun little throwback to 50s monster movies. It didn't take itself seriously. They were obviously having a lot of fun with it. The effects were pretty fun. I really liked all the characters, and I thought it was just an all around entertaining movie if you don't take it too serious. It was nice to have a few beers and watch it with some friends. We all got a good laugh out of it. But for some reason, when I thought about picking this, I thought, the one whose opinion I'm most curious about is Erik, since Erik doesn't like horror comedies.
I
think you don't like it.
No, I do. I loved Slither. I thought it was great fun.
Awesome.
It reminded me a lot of, I suppose, plot-wise, of Night of the Creeps. And tonally, it reminded me, we're just discussing last week Tremors. And I thought this was very much in keeping with the tone of Tremors. So, I love Slither. It was. I don't know what happened to it, because it was, the trailer was playing in cinemas here for ages, at least 6 months before it finally came out. So, I knew the trailer sort of by heart, because I used to go to the cinema quite a lot because it was released in a time when I was living closer to the city. But no, I really, really liked it. I do have it on. I have it on DVD as well.
Well, I think you're right about it bombing, because I've just looked up on thenumbers.com, and with the production budget and prints and advertising budget, it came in about 29 million, and it made...
Was the budget for it?
the budget for it's 15 million, just over 15 million.
Yeah.
Prints and advertising budget were 14 million, and then it made almost 8 million domestically, and worldwide almost 13 million. So
maybe that's why the trailer was playing so heavily over here, as they're anxious to get as many people to see it as possible.
Or it's sometimes we get in the past we've had films. The trailers are played at cinemas, and then the film never comes out, or never comes out in cinema.
That Renee Zellweger one was Case 39. It was called.
That's right. Yeah, and
that trailer was on non-stop, and it just never arrived in the end.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's. I think sometimes they wait to see what it does in the States, and then if it bombs, then they don't do anything with it. I mean, I have seen Sliver, but to be honest, it didn't leave much of an impression. I don't remember liking it that much, I must admit. But I probably need to watch it again at some point. So, yeah. How about you, Joseph?
Oh, I love Slither. I love the whole Grant in joke. I love the special effects, really propel the film for me. Like Erik said, it reminds me a lot of Night of the Creeps and the whole Fred Decker. He's got his own little world, like with Night of the Creeps and the Monster Squad. It just reminds me of a Fred Decker film. It's a lot of fun. I recommend it.
Okay. I meant to say one thing that I always loved about it is, there's a lot of movies that have the scene where, somebody, I guess a friend of theirs or a family member is either turned into a vampire or a zombie or whatever, and so the one who's not has to kill them, and they're faced with that decision, and it's like such a dramatic moment. Well, in Slither, one of the characters is, changing and just looks up and goes, "Kill me," and the friend just looks down, points a gun, and blows his head off without even acting like it bothers him. I always thought that was hilarious. It's that's how good their friendship was.
Well, there you
that's
go.
That's your reaction if Grant did the same. Surely,
I told him I'd shoot him. I got no problem doing it.
Even if he didn't ask you to.
Even if he didn't ask me, if I knew he was going to change anyway, I'd be like, "It's for your own good." Blam.
Right. Well, we'll move away from your psychotic tendencies, and we'll move on to Erik's number 3.
2002 Pang Brothers film The Eye. My top 3 is actually quite multicultural and international. This one is a Hong Kong film. It's a film about a woman called Mun who has been blind since she was 2. She receives a cornea transplant as an adult, and that restores her sight. But she soon discovers, to quote a famous film, that she can see dead people. So she goes on a quest then to find out who the donor was and why. Hopefully we'll explain why she's seeing ghosts. The reason I like it is I was quite really into J-horror, I suppose it's called. I mean, I haven't seen really any Asian horror in the last 3 or 4 years, but at the time I was watching everything that was coming out, and this was one of the best examples, I thought. It has 2 of the greatest, most heart-stopping moments, I think, in any horror film for the last 10 years. There's one where Mun is at a calligraphy lesson, and she hears a ghost whispering to her, "Why are you sitting in my chair?" And when she fails to answer, the ghost turns more aggressive and sort of, leaps for her. And so it's really quite jarring and shocking. The other is the famous elevator sequence where Mun is in the elevator and she's been menaced by this man with half of his face missing as he's sort of levitating around the lift. And then you have Mun can see these sort of ghostly, shadowy figures escorting the dead to the next world, in a way sort of reminiscent of the Patrick Swayze movie Ghost. So the movie isn't wholly original, and it uses a lot of J-horror standard scare techniques, but I think it does it really, really well, and I think it's certainly on a par with Ringu and Ju-on, which are probably the more celebrated examples of J-horror. But I did really, really love it, and it's one of the few films in the last 10 years that genuinely scares me.
Yeah, well, I would agree with that. So I think it's a great film, and also it's completely atypical for Hong Kong horror, isn't it? I mean, most Hong Kong horror is very, very silly.
Yes.
I mean, apart from the other film from Hong Kong that I really like, which is you don't never hear about, and it's got a really silly name, is it Horror Hotline, Big Head Monster? Which
yes.
Which has got a really silly name, but it's a really scary movie. And
yes, I probably shouldn't be calling it J-horror then, because I suppose J-horror is Japan, is it?
I kind of guess, yeah. I mean, it's
Asian horror.
Asian
I would
horror.
call it then. Just
yeah. But no, I agree. I think The Eye was great. Was it after The Ring, it was probably the next sort of film to kind of, really, for these films to get major releases in the UK. And
yeah, because I remember
Europe.
playing the cinemas here, but I didn't go because I just saw the name The Eye and I saw it was from Hong Kong. I thought, oh, it's just another artsy-fartsy foreign language film. I'm not going to see that. And then I discovered it on DVD afterwards and thought, what was I thinking? I should have, I said, I'd love to see it in the cinema. I'd say it worked really well.
And didn't it ended with the bridge collapse, didn't it? Which was obviously Final Destination 5. I wonder if that inspired that. Or
was it a bridge collapse?
It wasn't collapse. It was a bomb.
It was. There was a overturned tanker exploded.
That's right. Yes. But it's yeah. I mean, I think it's a great film.
Yeah, it does end very Final Destination-y. Yeah.
Yes. How about you guys, Nathan?
Did you notice how I'm making up words now too? It was very Final Destination-y.
Yes. Well, it's like it's not the funnest of films, but it's certainly a good one.
Anyway, I tried to settle that debate on Facebook, but apparently they're just going to let it keep going.
Yes, you had a mass debate on Facebook. Okay, and Nathan, what are your thoughts on The Eye?
Really, really enjoy The Eye. I think it's a very creepy film, and I actually kind of like the remake of it too.
Yeah, I'd no problems with the remake. I didn't think it was as effective as the original, but I thought it was entertaining enough.
Yeah,
I think that's the trouble, isn't it, with the remake of the Asian films, is they stick so closely to the original, which is good in some ways, but what they do is they take the best scares, and then you can't help but feel I've kind of been there, done that, and so it's not as effective, which if you saw the remake first, it would be effective, maybe. How about you, Joseph?
Well, to be honest, I saw The Eye at a midnight showing in Knoxville at an art house cinema, and that's the only time I ever saw it, so I don't really remember much about it. I mean, I remember liking it, but it's been it's been 8 or 9 years ago, so I need to watch it again.
Okay, right. Well, thank you for that one, and let's move on to my number 3, Drag Me to Hell, which is Sam Raimi's. In advance of it being released, it was his much talked about return to the horror genre after being stuck in Spider-Man. Hell for the past pretty much decade, and I really enjoyed it. I think it's a really handsomely mounted film. It's a huge amount of fun. It's kind of one of the ultimate popcorn horror movies, but it's got scary bits, and it's just vastly entertaining. And I couldn't really understand why it failed to find an audience. It was PG-13, which should have boosted the audience, but it didn't. And it just, it kind of flopped, and I was very surprised, and it's a shame, really, because, I would have liked to seen more horror films from Sam Raimi, but maybe this has put him off. I don't know, and also it's a shame. I really liked Justin Long in it, who was obviously in the original Jeepers Creepers, so making a return to horror, and also Alison Lohman, who I thought was great as the central character, but because, as oft happens with if a film flops, sometimes the blame on that can go on to the lead actors, and because the film rested on her shoulders, and I thought she did very well in it, I think her career's pretty much gone up in smoke now, as far as I can see, and which I think is very unfair. But I had a fantastic time at the cinema. Every person I've ever shown the film to thought it was fantastic, and I don't know why it didn't resonate better with audiences at the time. But that's my number 3 from 2009 is Drag Me to Hell. How about you guys? Any dissenting voices?
No, I think it's one of those. I think it's one of those in between horrors. Like Tremors, where you can show it to pretty much a horror fan or a non-horror fan. It's not it's not too over the top and disturbing, but it's at the same time it's kind of light, kind of like fast and quick, and wouldn't offend the casual horror fan. But I love Drag Me to Hell. I love the ending. I love like you said, the lead actress. I think she just has so much happen to her, and she just takes it like a trooper, as it were. I think it's probably as close to an Evil Dead film that we'll ever get, aside from the upcoming remake.
Yeah, because the seance sequence is pure Evil Dead 2.
Yeah.
Yes, that is true.
Can you
I thought the...
sorry, for a second. Can you hear that?
Yes, that's a very good one. Wouldn't you agree, matron?
You see, I was always waiting in the wings.
Nice.
Sorry, it's a little bit. I was my.
It's a delayed matron.
Yes, it was a delayed matron. Sorry. Carry on.
I was just going to say, I think the actress who plays the Romanian gypsy curse lady is terrific as well.
I'm just glad
she was great in The Caller as well.
I haven't seen that.
She was the villain in The Caller. You should check that out. That's a really good film, I think.
The scene where she is attacking Alison Lohman in the car in the underground car park is terrific. I think really, really brilliant.
It's a great cat fight.
Her dentures come flying out and everything.
That's brilliant.
I love that cat fighting scene. I think it's kind of got a little creepy vibe, but it's hilarious at the same time. I mean, like, I love the main girl when she like kind of gets the upper hand, like she's all screaming, like all happy, proud of herself that she got the upper hand on this old woman. Speaking of that, Grant's not a big fan of Drag Me to Hell because he hates that old woman that much. Like, he really, really hated her.
Well, she's the villain. What are you supposed to do?
I know. That's what I was trying to tell him. You're not supposed to like... But he hated her from the very beginning. Like, the second he even saw her in the bank, he hated her.
He's a weirdo. One of the complaints I hear from Drag Me to Hell is that a lot of people didn't like the main girl. They thought she was unlikable, and I thought she was totally likable. She does become sort of a cold-hearted bitch. I mean, but can you kind of you can't blame her? I mean, everything she goes through, it kind of.
She did. She kills a cat.
I'm not happy about that.
No, I'm sure Justin isn't either.
Well, I'm not, but she didn't really kill a cat, and I kind of like that kind of multi-nuanced kind of approach to a character, that she's kind of a vegetarian, but she kills a cat to save her life, and it's kind of. Not necessarily, I don't agree with that, but I kind of think it's better than the kind of cookie cutter sort of. Someone else who made this film would have just made her the kind of blindingly white, as in angelic character who was just and they didn't. They kind of they gave her different things about her personality, and it's much more realistic. I'm just going to say, actually, I just looked at the box office for this, and actually. I was wrong, but I seem to remember it being underwhelming. But it did actually make it made more than its budget back. It kind of made 90 million worldwide, so it wasn't that much of a flop. But it obviously, probably compared to something like Spider-Man and those kind of juggernaut superhero films, which, to be honest, I find quite tiresome, a lot of them.
I'm glad somebody else agrees, because I just don't get superhero films at all. I mean, everyone thought Spider-Man 2 was brilliant and Spider-Man 3 was rubbish, but to me they're more or less the same film. I can't see what the difference was.
I mean, I can watch them. I can watch them, but I just don't understand this mania for superhero films. I mean, they're just fucking comics at the end of the day.
Yeah, you just have to be a comic book fan, I think.
And I do like comics.
To be fair, I like the first 25 or 30 minutes of the first Spider-Man when it actually sets up things, but after that, I lost interest.
Well, I'm probably one of the few people who thought, I can't stand Christian Bale as Batman. I find him so fucking po-faced and just so irritating. And I can watch the films, I can appreciate them and think, yeah, they're fun, but they're just big budget fluff. That's all they are, which is great for what they are, but I just don't understand why people fall over themselves and go and
why they think The Dark Knight should be nominated for Oscars.
No, I don't understand it. I really don't. But that's
I'm so glad that somebody else agrees, because I'm the only one who's not excited about the new Batman film. I don't even know what it's called. I'm that unexcited about it.
The Dark Knight Rises.
Oh, right. Well, there we go. Okay.
And also, what annoys me is films like The Dark Knight, which went on for like 42 hours or something. Well, not Dark Knight, but the last film. And you're thinking, again, it's a superhero movie. It should be a tight 90 minutes of fun. Bring back Bruce Wayne and the 60s with the 60s campy version with the power.
I much prefer the 60s campy version.
Christian Bale can suck my cock. That's what I'm going to say. Well, not that anyway. Anyway, let's move. Oh, sorry, getting very fighting talk.
Yeah,
sorry.
I've never heard Justin this angry before.
Get yourself into that cold shower, Justin.
Anyway, let's maybe moving swiftly on might be a good idea. So let's go on to something that will dampen our ire. It is, of course, the
Cloverfield, the found footage film about essentially a humongous monster attacking New York City out of the blue. And the reason I picked Cloverfield as my number 2 is it's one of those films I saw in a crowded, cinema, and the whole time when I first got there, I was like, wow, there's a lot of children here. It's going to be a nightmare. But it was the most well-behaved audience I've ever, participated with, and it was like it was like the very definition of what a roller coaster ride should be. I mean, it had the ups and downs and throwing you all about, and it was just fun all the way through. I mean, it's probably one of the best if not the best cinema experiences I've ever had in my life. And I love the creature effects. I love the whole. I like the idea. I love found footage films, but I like the idea of these people, throwing this going away party, and all of a sudden, all fucking hell breaks loose, and there's just like 12-story, like a 50-story monster just wreaking havoc on the city. And what I also liked about it is that the monster, it doesn't have any motives. It's just basically just confused, like, newborn childlike monster that, basically hatches, is basically looking for its mother. And so it's just stumbling around confused and scared, and it has the military, shooting at it, and it's making things worse. And I also liked that it had like lice all over its body that fell off, and they were like the size of probably motorcycles or something. I don't know, but and they attacked the characters, while the monster's just basically stumbling about through New York, knocking buildings down and stomping on people. But like I said, it's a roller coaster ride. It's fun. It's never boring. It's a really unique twist on the whole found footage film. It's definitely the best theater experience I've had in a long time, and it hasn't been surpassed yet. I can remember just walking out of the theater like, wow, that was amazing. I got to go back and see that. And unfortunately, I didn't get to see it a second time at the theater, but I'll never forget that.
Yeah, well, no, thank you. How about you, Nathan? What are your thoughts on Cloverfield?
I think Cloverfield is amazing. I think one thing I really love about it, which is something we've discussed many, many times in the past, is the characters. For a newer film, all these characters are very likable. Like I hated seeing, bad things happen to them. And one scene that always seemed to stick out with me more than anything is when the main character is on the phone with his mom when they seek refuge in the subway. And, having to tell her that he just watched his brother get killed. I mean, I don't know, just something about that scene was really, sad, because I keep thinking the mom, scared that what could have happened to her sons, and, her son calls her, and, probably she feels immediate relief, and then right away he has to tell her, he's dead. I mean, I don't know why that scene was just really sad to me. And I love the scene where they're in the tunnels and they hear something and turn on the night vision. I mean, because I can't imagine being in the tunnels and feeling something, and when you look down, the rats are all running in one direction. I mean, running away from something. So that is a really scary scene in that movie. It's a great movie.
Cool. How about you, Erik?
Yeah, as I said last week, this was one I didn't go to the cinema for because people warned me, as a person who suffers from motion sickness, to wait till it came out in DVD. So I did. But I really, really enjoyed it. And I was really quite excited about seeing it because I thought the trailers were terrific. I saw one of the films I saw this week, actually, I forgot to mention and recently seen, was Troll Hunter, which does the same type of thing. It's a found footage movie, but with lavish special effects of giant monsters. And it was, almost as much fun as Cloverfield. But, I did love it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, just to add my tuppence, as it were, is I really enjoyed it. Probably not quite as much as you, Joseph. I think partly because I didn't see it at the cinema. I think I'd seen it at the cinema. I think I probably would have enjoyed it more. I mean, I did enjoy it. It's just kind of weird. I don't know, the whole thing about New York being destroyed, and obviously having that kind of sort of almost a decade after 9/11 and that kind of thing. I don't want to. I don't know. It's just kind of strange that whole thing of panic in big cities, especially New York. It kind of had a weird resonance, which it gives it something else, which other kind of monster movies don't have. And obviously, it's kind of, I kind of guess it's an updating of Godzilla, and obviously the Godzilla from, when was it, in '99 or something, which was, wasn't awful, but it was, a lot of people called it awful, but I saw it and it wasn't that bad. It was it's kind of updating to that, and I think I was talking to somebody about this the other day, about saying how it didn't really feel like films in the last 10 years have got an identity, but I think we're actually starting to see, talking about these films, I think in another 10 years we'll look back and we'll probably be able to say, with some confidence, what kind of films, what kind of film made up a film from the noughties, as it were. And I just wanted to clarify quickly, when I said I want Christian Bale to suck my cock, I didn't mean it. I actually meant to say kiss my ass. Maybe it's a Freudian slip. I don't know. I don't think it was.
I think it was.
Yes, maybe it was. But although
you don't think he'd be good at it?
Probably not.
He'd be all teeth,
with those lips.
He'd be like, "Oh, Justin, this is great."
But I was just going to quickly coming back to that. The only reason I don't hate superhero movies, and I think they're great, is just I don't understand the gravitas and that people attribute to them. And the thing that has always annoyed me was like genre snobbery. And when it comes to the slasher movie, the worst detractors of the slasher movie, apart from the critics and church, those kind of whole things, is actually horror fans themselves always look down on the slasher movie. And they look down on the slasher movie as basically being repetitious and those kind of things. Well, the superhero movies are no different. In fact, they're the biggest cash cows out there, shamelessly recycling ideas. And so I just think if the slasher movie is slagged off for those things, then I don't see why people are queuing up to kiss the backside of the latest Spider-Man movie. I don't know. But anyway, sorry, my rant over. Are we ready to go on to Nathan's number 2? And do you want a cat?
Yes, I want a cat.
He's a cat.
From the movie Wreck, which I find to be really, really entertaining. Kind of suspense-filled little film. Anybody that's seen Quarantine, it's the basic. Quarantine's a remake of Wreck, so it's the reporter, and she goes with the firefighters to this building, and they end up getting quarantined inside the building, and they're filming it, and there's like a virus or something, and like people who get bit get infected and turn into like crazy, like psycho demon looking things, but. It's really, really good, and I always thought the ending to Wreck was really fantastic and very creepy. Just imagining being in a pitch black room and there being this thing in the room, like swinging a hammer wildly trying to find you. I can't imagine the terror that would be going through you during something like that. But I think it's a really, really good movie. I even like the sequel, Wreck 2.
Yeah. Okay. How about you, Joseph? What's your thoughts on Wreck?
Well, I'm a little ashamed because, me being probably the biggest supporter of found footage films, I haven't seen either Wreck film. I keep meaning to, but I just haven't got around to it. And I know they're getting ready to release Wreck 3. I think it's called Apocalypse. But I need to see both of them. And as a matter of fact, I might do that tonight if I don't have anything else going on.
I think you should.
Then you'll be doing it tonight.
They're great films. How about you, Erik?
Yeah, I've seen both of them. I think they're fantastic. What I love about Wreck 2 as well is that it picks up exactly where the first one left off, in a Halloween 2 kind of way. So they really complement each other. And Wreck 2 takes the story even further. It's not just a retread. So I think watching both of them back to back would be really, really good.
I mean, the only thing, I think they're amazing. I saw the first one at cinema, and it was great. The only thing I haven't seen the remake Quarantine, but I did see Quarantine 2, only because I knew that it was completely different. Because Quarantine 2 is set in an airport, isn't it? Where it's set in there's an outbreak on the plane, and it's kind of set in a kind of cargo hold. And I think it was all right. It was kind of just like a bit of another zombie movie, I kind of guess, which I can guess is what you could say the Wreck movies are. But the thing that surprised me in some ways, and obviously because Joseph hasn't seen it, and I don't want to spoil it, it was obviously the religious angle to what was going on in Wreck was kind of dropped, wasn't it, in the American remake. It was turned into far more kind of normal or bog standard kind of virus situation. Is that right, Nathan? Because I haven't seen the remake.
Yeah, it's like a virus. You're right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's great, and also the third, because they're making 3 and 4, aren't they? And I think the third one is a prequel set at a wedding party. And
God, I want to see it now.
Ooh, that sounds good.
Have you not seen the trailer for it?
No, I'm going to watch the trailer.
Yeah, I've just read about it briefly. I didn't even know the plot synopsis. I just knew it was coming out this year.
Yeah, because it's set at a wedding party.
To catch up with Wreck and Wreck 2 because I wanted to see it, eventually. But wow, that sounds at a wedding party. That sounds really interesting.
It looks great. It looks really good. And then I think the fourth one is kind of is a follow on from the first 2 films. But they say the budget's all the same.
Are the new ones? Are they still found footage films?
I think
part 2 isn't.
No,
part 2
is not.
Oh, of Quarantine, yeah.
Part 2 of Quarantine is not found footage.
No,
I'm talking about Wreck.
Oh yeah, both Wreck movies are found footage.
Okay.
But yeah, it looks
can,
like.
Can I just mention a quick valuable lesson learned cinema experience from Quarantine? I went to see Quarantine in the cinema, and these 2 old ladies sat in front of me. They must have been in their 70s, if not their 80s. And I was like, they've obviously gone into the wrong cinema. What would they be doing going to see Quarantine? And I said, they're probably going to chat about knitting and crochet during the whole film. They sat there quietly watching the film all the way through. And then afterwards, I heard them discussing the merits of Wreck versus Quarantine.
Oh,
so
really?
I learned not to judge a book by its cover.
Fantastic.
Wow.
When I went to the cinema, there was an old lady who came in and said, "Can you tell me just the most violent film you have on today?" So there is kind of, there are old ladies who like horror movies, and that makes my heart warm. So, great. Well, thank you. And Erik, it's up to you. Would you like...
Do you need to ask? Of course I want the cat flushing the toilet. Okay. Martyrs, 2008 French film. Now, I'm not usually one to go for what you call extreme horror. I prefer my horror films to be slightly more fun, something along the lines of Friday the 13th, Halloween, something that you can rewatch and it's not too disturbing. But for some reasons, Martyrs is a rare exception for me. It's a story of a young girl called Lucy who's kidnapped and tortured for 14 months, but manages to escape. As she's in recovery, she befriends a girl called Anna. And then 15 years later, the 2 embark on a mission of revenge. But I mean, that's really only the start of the story, as we slowly discover that there's this organization that was behind Lucy's kidnap all those years ago, and we discover what their motives were. So I suppose what I like about the film is it's constantly changing gear. It's at the start, it seems like it starts off with a blast of ultra-violence where this family is blown away by a woman with a shotgun, and it looks like it's going to be a vigilante movie. Then it introduces these sort of weird skeletal creatures, and you think, okay, it's going into a sort of maybe slightly supernatural monster movie. And then it shifts gear again for the last half hour into something akin to a torture porn, if you'll excuse the term, movie. I mean, the content is very grim, and laughs, are quite scarce, but it's the concepts and the ideas in the film I found really engrossing, really enthralling. The goals of the ghastly organization and how they go about their work like it's a regular 9-to-5 job, I found really, really creepy. And the final act performed on the captured girl is jaw-dropping, I thought. And it ends on an ambiguous note, which really gets you thinking. So not a feel-good film in any way. Disturbing, extraordinarily well made. And as I said, I'm not usually a fan of things that are too grim, but for some reason Martyrs is one I can rewatch over and over. And incidentally, that clip I got from the start for the English language dub, the reason I couldn't find an English language trailer, but I stumbled across on YouTube. You can watch the entire film dubbed into English, because normally it's in French with English subtitles. On YouTube, you can watch the entire film, which I was surprised at, considering it's recent. So there we go. Martyrs. What did you think of it, Justin?
Yeah, I love Martyrs. I think it's a great film. I'm like you. I'm not... I think in some ways that kind of extreme gore, as in, like Guinea Pig, all of those kind of films, kind of things. I even back when I was younger, I wasn't really that much of a fan of them, but I did kind of seek some of them out. I prefer popcorn horror movies.
Me too, generally, but this was my exception, I thought, because I just thought there was so much going on ideas-wise here that I was really engrossed in it.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think the French were never really known, apart from like Jean Rollin and people like that, for their horror movies, particularly. And it's so surprising the last 10 years, actually, France has got a real name for itself, actually making quite, taking American themes and putting quite a Gallic kind of spin on them. And Martyrs, I think, especially interesting. I think it probably has more of a resonance, and I keep using the word resonance, but because I was brought up Catholic, and obviously you're from a predominantly Catholic country, and I think that had a certain thing for me, because although I'm not religious now, I thought that whole idea about why they were doing what they were doing to the girls was kind of presented a really kind of interesting theological and kind of question, really. And and I thought it was very, very well done, and I liked that kind of ambiguous ending. And you could read into it what you wanted to, really. So I think it's a great film.
I agree. I think the opening with the weird like demon type thing that's in the house, that was very scary to me. And I had a lot of fun debating with so many people about what we think was whispered at the end, that caused the ending to happen. I've got my theories, but I like that it's left open to interpretation.
I think it's really clever of the filmmakers to do that, because a more concrete ending would have you thinking less about the film afterwards.
Yeah. Yes, and I've thought a lot about it. It's
me too.
Entertaining discussions.
And what about you, Joseph? Have you seen it?
Yes, I hated it. I can't stand that movie. I'm serious. I really, really hated that film. To me, I get what they're trying to do, but it reminded me of The Matrix. I mean, it was like a horror version of The Matrix, right down to there's a world beyond what you know, and right to that woman who's just like Morpheus, spouting all these over the top platitudes, and basically it just reminded me of that, and except with a lot of gratuitous torture. I mean, I didn't have any fun with it. I thought, I get what they're trying to say. It's unique, but I don't know. It's just, I'm not, I don't turn away from disturbing films. I like a lot of disturbing films, but I don't know. Something about this film just really rubbed me the wrong way, and I just don't like it. I hated it. What can I say?
Well, interestingly, there's I keep on hearing rumours or whispers about an American remake.
I really can't imagine how that would go.
No, I can't either.
I mean, I know Hollywood can get away with a lot of violence in films these days, but I don't know if it could really grasp the tone. I mean, for starters, you'd have Jessica Alba and some other topless bimbo as the two females, and
Miley Cyrus.
Yes, possibly.
Okay, well, no, thank you, Erik. Let's. I shall give myself a quick blast of kind of repeating ourselves a little bit about when we talked about The Eye, but certainly with Ring in the late 90s, wasn't it? Was it 90 or mid 90s? I can't remember.
It was 98, I think, was The Ring. 98. Was it? Or Ringu. Yeah.
Ringu, yeah, and what?
Oh, sorry.
He's got all Kenneth Williams on us again.
Yes, that's a very good one. Wouldn't you agree, matron?
Anyway, moving on.
Can't say
swiftly.
The Ring without it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, fair enough. But coming out of Japan, the stuff that was and Asia, but Ju-on was a genuine kind of J-horror. And it's kind of those films, because when I saw, saw this, I probably got a bootleg of it before it came out here, and it seemed quite special. And I think it all seems a bit passé now, the whole J-horror, Asian horror thing. But at the time, these actually seemed very special, because maybe controversially, but I think at the time, American horror movies and British horror movies, because there weren't really many of them at all, had actually lost the idea of actually being scary. And I kind of think the J-horror and Asian horror were actually reutilising that kind of scariness, well, reusing it, and taking kind of like an M.R. James style kind of horror, which is kind of, or a kind of Lovecraft style horror, which is kind of completely missing from American genre movies at the time, or mostly. And During the Grudge was that, and it's quite an interesting film. The way it's set up, it's quite episodic, and it jumps around. I remember watching it. It doesn't make any allowances for its audience, because it jumps around in a timeline. You don't really know if you're watching something that's happening now, something happening in the future, something's happened in the past, and all those things slowly come together. And of course, the idea is this woman who and her son have been killed in a house, and her hatred is so virulent that it becomes a virus, and people become infected with it and die a horrible death. And I just remember, the whole scares of it, of her, the son, the kind of a cat noise coming out of his mouth, and her that kind of coming down the stairs. It's really good, effective horror. And of course, again, it got remade with you couldn't make it up with Michelle, Sarah Michelle Gellar, but the American remake wasn't too bad actually. But that was During the Grudge. The original was my number 2. So I take it you've seen it.
Oh yeah,
no.
It would have. It would have been in my top 3 if you hadn't picked it already. Because I love During the Grudge. I love the sequel as well, and I love the American remake. And I don't just think it's an acceptable American version. I think it's really, really good. The weakness of it, I suppose, is the plot. It's quite weak that way. It's more of a catalogue of scares, but I mean, it's so well done. I mean, the woman and the son are just so eerie.
I love the scene in when the woman gets so scared and she goes home and she gets into bed.
Oh yeah.
And then she kind of lifts up the covers and she looks down, and the little boy's at the bottom of the bed looking up at her. And that's kind of like things like
I went to see the remake with my brother, who hadn't seen the original Japanese Ju-on, and when that woman's noise first comes up, he was like, "Is she belching?" I had to explain to her, no, it's because her neck is broken. She's making a funny noise.
But Nathan, you said you've not seen it.
I've only seen the remake, but I really liked it.
Well, it follows it fairly closely, although I think it does doesn't it amalgamate parts 1 and 2? I seem to remember.
I can't remember if it does that.
But anyway, how about you, Joseph?
I thought the remake was kind of watered down. It had its moments, but I really do like the original Ju-on. One thing I wanted to mention, Erik was talking about how his friend asked if she was belching. When The Grudge, the remake, came out over here, everyone and their mother was doing that sound, and it just really kind of got old. But the remake is, but the original is, I think it's really creepy. Like you said, it doesn't have much of a plot. It's just enough to hinge one scare after another upon, and I think those scare scenes are actually really well crafted and very effective.
Actually, a true story is a friend of mine teaches, or used to teach a little boy called Juan, and his mother called him Juan, but she liked the name Juan, but didn't know how to pronounce it. So his name was spelt Juan, but she actually called him Juan. So I don't know if he's still called Juan, but anyway, that's a little aside.
Well, a little aside is that the actress Phoebe Cates, when I went to see Gremlins in the cinema, I was telling my sister about this actress, and it's called Phoebe Cates.
Okay.
And she laughed. She laughed at me, and she rammed that little mistake of mine down my throat for the rest of my life.
Well, I used to call Lucio Fulci Lucio Fulci. So
see, that was the problem growing up in the pre-internet age.
Like, look, you'll fuck you.
Well, you'd read those names, like if you're myself and Justin's age, you'd read those names in a magazine, but you'd have no clue how to pronounce them.
Okay, well, I think we're moving on to our number ones, and I think the next one is Joseph. So here's your top number 1 horror movies from the noughties, or last 10 years, which aren't slasher movies.
Poughkeepsie Tapes, which was made and completed in 2007, yet it still struggles to find a legitimate release because it's that, it's really disturbing. It's a found footage film. Basically, it's sort of a documentary type / found footage film about the police finding these tapes that this guy made of him, basically torturing and killing people, and he's documented it, and it's extremely harrowing. I mean, it's one of the few movies I've ever seen in my entire life where after I watched it, I was actually afraid when I walked to my car. I was afraid something was going to happen, and it stayed with me. We were talking about, Martyrs being so extreme, but for me, the Poughkeepsie tapes is probably as extreme, without being as graphic. But for me, it resonates more because it's more realistic. It's really disturbing, and it's so haunting because it could actually happen. I mean, you've seen things like this on 60 Minutes or 2020 about people abducting people and having these things happen to them. And I thought for it being this kind of cinema verite type film, they captured that whole essence very well. I mean, watching the film, my jaw was, on the floor the whole time. I was like, wow, this is the most realistic, disturbing, terrifying film I've seen in, ages. And I still think that it's really effective. And, if you can, stomach some of the more harrowing sequences, I think you would really enjoy it. There's one, actually there's more than one, but there's one scene in particular that I really loved is, they show a clip from one of the tapes, that the guy took when he was torturing and killing people, and this woman's tied up to this I guess it's like a what do you call those foundation support beam or something in a basement, and you hear this like radiator noise. I mean, it's really loud, and the camera's kind of fuzzy and you don't know what's going on, and all of a sudden you see this weird face. It looks like it's crawling towards her, and it's him on his like hands and knees just crawling towards her, and he's got this mask over his head. And I found that, I mean, that literally made me go, holy shit, when we watched that. We watched that at Grant's about a year ago. And the film, I mean, I've never forgotten it. It's really that effective. I mean, I recommend it. I don't know if a lot of people will like it, but I found it, I guess effective, if I can use that word again. I mean, it really stuck with me. I mean, I'll never, ever forget it.
Okay. Was anyone else seen the Poughkeepsie tapes?
I have, yeah.
You have? And you have, Nathan?
Yeah, I'd like to hear Eric's thoughts on it.
Yeah, I thought, I see, I'm not really one for serial killer films, so I probably didn't find it as enthralling as Joseph did, but I do think it's very effective. And that scene he mentions where the killer is crawling in the background, it reminds me a bit of that scene in Saw where he has a pig mask he has on and he crawls into the back seat of a car. I'm just trying to go off the top of my head here because I haven't seen Saw in about 7 or 8 years. It reminded me of that. I thought that was really effective. When it comes to found footage, though, I prefer it to be slightly more ghosty or monstery. I think they're more effective for me. Serial killers, just not my cup of tea, really. But it is an effective film. I can see why you really like it, yeah. Actually, speaking of, we were speaking of Quarantine earlier. Isn't that directed by the guys who did Quarantine?
Yep.
Yeah.
It is.
And Devil as well, the M. Night Shyamalan produced Elevator.
Oh, I love Devil.
Movie.
Oh, I love Devil too.
Did you love Devil?
I picked it.
What?
I forgot about it.
Yeah.
Okay, Devil would not have made my top 10 horror films of the noughties, I have to say.
I've not seen
it'd make my top 3.
Would it?
Really?
At least my top 5. Yeah, at least my top 5.
I thought it was merely okay. I think, yeah, Nathan's definitely on acid.
Justin, you haven't seen Devil, have you?
I haven't seen Devil, no.
Okay, no spoilers.
Okay.
It's a good little Twilight Zone type film, I think.
Yeah, it was effective enough, but I wouldn't think it was anything spectacular.
I'll put it on my love film list.
Oh, did you know the killer from the Poughkeepsie tapes is in Quarantine?
Oh, is he? Yeah.
Yeah, because we never see him in Poughkeepsie.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Do we see him in Poughkeepsie tapes? I don't think we do, yeah.
No.
I mean, I thought it's a very effective little movie. I'm just kind of surprised that it hasn't come out legitimately. If the directors have gone on to quite high, high profile films.
Yeah,
it's not that disturbing, is it? I mean, other films get to get a DVD release. I mean, so there must be something else going on with it. I would imagine, it must be a rights issue. Do you reckon?
Possibly, yeah.
Can't see why else it wouldn't get released, but Yeah, well, that's Poughkeepsie Tapes. Well, thank you, Joseph, for your number one.
What about you, Nathan?
Oh,
I
sorry.
want to hear what Nathan says.
Oh, yeah. So
Oh, I really love Poughkeepsie Tapes. I think it's very disturbing, and it probably would have made my top. It was one of the ones that I probably would have picked before you had picked it. I think the scene that always stuck with me the most is the scene that you guys mentioned is really good, but the scene before that when he picks her up and she thinks he's a police officer, and how their conversation goes from like really nice and cool and slowly kind of gets into something terrifying. I thought that was really well done. And that woman that played the British one, she was a very, very good actress in that scene.
That actually was very suspenseful, I thought, yeah.
Cool. Okay, well, thank you, Joseph. Let's see what Nathan put his number one instead.
Yes, I really, really love Paranormal Activity. I actually prefer it to the Blair Witch Project. I think I found the characters more sympathetic, especially Katie. Like, I actually felt for her plot through the whole movie, And, of course, her boyfriend's kind of unsympathetic, but, I still liked his character anyway. I like how the movie's a slow burn, like every night when that camera, goes on while they're sleeping, something's going to happen, but you don't know what. And it's always like it very slowly builds until the conclusion, which I really enjoyed as well. And this movie, I don't know why, but us on the message boards and stuff, and people that I know, it gets a lot of hate. Like, a lot of people hate it, and I don't understand that. I don't understand, all the hate it gets, really. But I will say that one thing that might, have led to me enjoying it as much as I do is it is hands down the best theater experience I've ever had. When I went to the theater, everybody was laughing at the right parts. They were screaming at the right parts. And, during one scene when the covers lifted up off of her, like, a lot of the girls in the audience started gasping. I mean, it was just such a fun experience. Like, I really wish I could relive that theater experience. But I really love the movie anyway.
See, that's how I felt about Cloverfield when I saw it. I had that same theater experience. You just
it really enhances your liking of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you had girls gasping at the theatre, did you?
I did.
Did you get thrown out? Did they catch you?
There's a bunch of Eriks going,
Oi, I'm not a girl.
So, how about you, Joseph? What did you think of Paranormal Activity?
Yeah, I like Paranormal Activity. Probably not as much as Nathan. I don't think it's my favorite of the found footage films, but I think it's pretty effective. The sequel's kind of a massive step down in quality. Whereas in the first film, I found the characters a little, I liked them. In the second film, I found most of them, unsympathetic, especially the husband character.
Oh, God, yeah.
But he has a beard.
Well, that's only
that should make him sympathetic right away.
Yeah, yeah, he's sympathetic because he has a beard.
Joe, watch the third one.
I still haven't seen I haven't seen the third one yet, but I will. But yeah, I like the first Paranormal Activity. It's a little, I think it's a little long, and it could probably take about 10 minutes off of it. But pretty good, pretty effective.
How about you, Erik?
Yeah, my love for Paranormal Activity would probably be as strong as Nathan's, I'd say, because I really, really like the film. I'd say the reason people don't like it is because what scares people is a very subjective thing. So if you're not scared by, a door creaking during the night or a light appearing on in the background in the middle of the night, you're going to find the film really boring. Whereas those kind of subtle scares really, really work for me. And I just found the film really eerie, and I was really engrossed in it. I loved it, and I think it stands up to repeated viewings as well. And I mean, I liked the sequel to a degree as well. It was the worst cinematic experience I've had in a long time, but I've since I purchased the DVD, dirt cheap on Amazon, and watched it again, and I think it's quite good. I like it. I saw the third one as well, which I liked as well. But again, I think you have to understand there probably is people who don't like. If they're not creeped out by the type of scares in Paranormal Activity, there's nothing else there for them, so they're going to be bored by it. So that's probably why it splits people down the middle.
No, I think I'd echo everything you said about that. I really liked it. Again, it was a really good cinema-going experience. But funnily enough, the people I went with didn't like it, or a couple of the people I went with were at the end of it, they just said, "Oh, that was crap. That was boring. I don't, and they just didn't get it." But they're the kind of people who loved Drag Me to Hell, and I can appreciate Drag Me to Hell and Paranormal Activity. But I can see if you're the kind of person who wants lots of special effects and lots of adrenaline and lots of basically have everything given to you on the plate. Then you're not going to like something like Paranormal Activity. It's not a kind of film. It's not. Doesn't make you think. It's not a kind of film that challenges you in that kind of way. But it does, like you say, fear is subjective, and so therefore some things scare people and some things don't scare other people. And I'm a kind of bit of an equal opportunities person when it comes to horror movies. I kind of like, there's some types of horror movies I like more than others, but I'm not a kind of a meat and potatoes man, as it were. I'm kind of happy to, sort of try out different films, and I can have a popcorn bubblegum horror movie one day and watch a very slow-moving Italian horror movie the next. So, yeah, it's a good
I agree
choice,
with
Nathan.
you. I love a wide range of movies.
Variety is the spice of life.
Absolutely.
It's like being bisexual, except instead of liking men and women, you like different types of horror films.
Yes. Okay.
There you go.
There you go.
That's a good analogy.
Well, and actually, I don't think. Well, can we get any more different, or different-er, as in funnerer, or funnest?
Funnerer. I like that one.
Yeah.
Funnerer. There you go. From Paranormal Activity to Eric's number one.
Well, Grindhouse was generally well received by critics, but there are a number of horror fans who seem to dismiss it. They think it's trying too hard. And they're accusing Tarantino and Rodriguez of spending, X million dollars on something that would cost true grindhouse filmmakers back in the 70s and 80s, tuppence. And I think there's kind of a snobbishness attached to it, similar to that which we've discussed before, the snobbishness that was aimed at trendy horror in the late 90s, the Screams that I know what you did last summers. To me, it's the perfect double bill experience. I mean, I was in love with the idea from when I first saw the trailers coming out in the cinemas in early 2007. It's famously, the film didn't open over here as Grindhouse in the end. We got it as two separate films. We got Death Proof in September 2007, and then we got Planet Terror separately in the December of the same year. Fortunately, I got to see the Grindhouse experience on the big screen because they, about maybe a year later, they had a one-off screening at the local cinema. And I just think it's terrific. I mean, you have the trashy, over-the-top latex gore delights of the zombie film in Planet Terror, followed by the more dialogue heavy but equally silly and trashy Death Proof. And built around them are various faux trailers that are meant to mimic the promotional materials that would have been typical of the Grindhouse era, which would be the 70s and maybe early 80s. I look on it as two contemporary movies, two sort of noughties movies that have been given a sheen to make them look like they're 30 years old. I didn't expect them to be set in the 70s and to be really, really authentic. I think a lot of people probably had a problem with the fact that they were modern films with scratches on them. That didn't bother me at all. I think it completely accomplished what it set out to do. It didn't disappoint me at all. The only down point in it, I don't want to pick on Rob Zombie, but his trailer, which was for some Nazi werewolf film, I can't think of the title off the top of my head, but it was the only dull point in the film for me. Planet Terror is crafted like an 80s gore epic. It reminded me kind of a Stuart Gordon film. The real ace, though, and I've discussed this many times in the podcast, was Death Proof, which I was really surprised by because the advance word was that Death Proof was very much the lesser film of the two. Whereas for me, it's the best thing about the film. I mean, it's quite slow moving, but to me, it's never boring. Lots of dialogue. It takes its time getting going. It sets up this group of girls, then kills them all off in a split second halfway through the film and reboots itself, which I think is probably what antagonized a lot of people about sort of Death Proof in particular. I mean, I can kind of understand that. But I mean, there's just an atmosphere and a verve to Death Proof that I love, and it's the cherry on the top of the Grindhouse cake. I think it sets up nicely with Planet Terror, and then climaxes, if you'll excuse the term, very nicely indeed with Death Proof. I just really bought into it entirely, and I loved it.
Okay. What about you, Nathan? What are your thoughts?
I really enjoyed every bit of Grindhouse. I think as far as the trailers go, of course, Thanksgiving is my favorite trailer there. And as far as the two movies go, I love Planet Terror, but Death Proof to me was amazing to watch on the big screen. Like the final car chase with her on the hood of the car, like that was nail-biting suspense for me. I was sitting there gripping the arms of the chair, like anytime he'd ram their car and she would like move like. I mean, I thought that was a really, really well done and fun, action-packed movie, and the dialogue in it is great. Like I don't get bored at any of the dialogue scenes. I think they're just as entertaining as the action scenes.
So, here, I agree. Yeah.
What about you, Joseph?
Yeah, I like Grindhouse a lot. I'm not a huge fan of the Planet Terror segment. I think it's okay. I think it's merely okay. But Death Proof, I found, was a lot of fun. And Kurt Russell, I mean, he just goes completely manic and over the top. And, I know this is probably going to sound weird to a lot of people, but I honestly thought, his performance, it was so, it's so crazy, but it's so effective. I could see, him actually getting like an Oscar nomination for something like that, because it was just so, crazy, but and I love the trailers, obviously, not the Rob Zombie one, like you said. I found it kind of boring. I love the don't, and I really love, obviously, the Thanksgiving trailer. It's my favorite. Death Proof is fantastic. I love the atypical Quentin Tarantino dialogue. Planet Terror, fun premise, just kind of not executed as well as I thought. I do have a bit of a problem. I think I don't think the whole entire experience, except for the trailers, I think the trailers captured the whole Grindhouse feel well. I don't think both films, essentially 100% captured, what it is to be a Grindhouse film, but, they came close enough for, what they were, which is essentially big budget action pictures with dust and scratches on them and, made by fans of those films. And, I liked it a lot.
Were the chicks hot enough for you in Death Proof?
Oh, yeah.
I thought so.
I'm just interested, actually, Erik, did you... Because I saw Death Proof when it came out at the cinema here, and obviously, as you say, it didn't get released as the double bill, but it got released as an extended version of the Quentin Tarantino film. And I remember being a bit disappointed, to be honest. I mean, partly because Tarantino himself had bigged it up as being a slasher movie with his slash. Basically, he said, "This is my slasher movie," and I was kind of thinking, "Wow, Tarantino's going to do a slasher movie. It's going to be like, it's going to be a really over the top kind of Friday the 13th or something, or Sorority House, something is going to be like that." And of course, it wasn't that. So that kind of turned me off to start off with. But also I think. Having watched Grindhouse as it was meant to be seen, which I think the portion is both films slightly shorter than the extended versions, that it works better, because I think the longer version of Death Proof actually is a bit boring. I do think it's a little bit dull. It's fine if you want, and I like Quentin Tarantino movies. I think I'm genuinely quite a fan of his. But, I do have some sympathy with people who would say that most exploitation movies of the 70s would never be as talky as that. They just wouldn't, be as self-indulgent. And so I do have some sympathy with that. I mean, I think once it gets going, it's great. And I do like, I love all the kind of stuff of standing around and putting the records on and the dancing and stuff like that. It's great, but I think it works much better in the tighter cut. I think as the extended cut is unfortunately is Tarantino at his most self-indulgent, and I think that I do have a problem with that. So a little bit of dissenting voice.
Oh
yeah, Tarantino never likes to cut anything. He likes to keep in everything. That's his one problem, is that he doesn't know when to cut and he doesn't know what to cut.
Well, see, I was never a Tarantino fanboy. I mean, I loved Pulp Fiction, as just like everyone else did. But it wasn't until Death Proof that I really sort of embraced his filmmaking. disagree with you, Justin. I love the 2-hour cut of Death Proof as much as I love the 90-minute cut that's in Grindhouse. I just think it's wonderful. And I do think that a lot of exploitation films from the 70s were talky because they couldn't afford special effects, so they had to fill the film with other elements instead, namely dialogue.
But not that talky.
Not that talky, no. And the dialogue is very Quentin Tarantino. It's very 21st century. Yeah. It's very clever, and it's not the way people speak naturally. But I mean, I loved it.
Okay, well, we can't all agree. So let's see for you what you think about my number one, 2008's Lake Mungo. It did actually get released in the States as part of the what were they called, that series of films?
The 8 Films to Die For from After Dark.
That's right. Yeah. I just kind of caught this by accident, really, and it was I like Joseph, and I'm kind of quite a fan of the found footage. I like a really good found footage, and this isn't a found footage film. It's actually like a faux documentary. In fact, it's actually on YouTube. It's got, I can't remember. It's like tens of millions of hits, and they actually use footage from this film to pretend it's a real ghost sighting. But essentially, the story is it's a faux documentary looking back at the disappearance of a teenage girl called Alice, who disappears at Lake. I think it's at Lake Mungo, but she disappears, and then her body's found fairly soon afterwards. And after that, then her family see images of her turn up on videotape and around the house. But it turns out, and this is what the thing which I think was works so well with it, is kind of has that whole idea of the old doppelganger, of the idea that if you see yourself, an image of if you see yourself, it's your doppelganger, and it's a portent of doom, that you're going to die. And there's one. It's a very slow, kind of funereal almost film. It's a very It's very measured. It's kind of it's not like there's not many jumps or anything like that. It's quite a sad film in a genuinely sad kind of sort of film. But there's one scene in it which, if you've seen it, you'll know, and it involves mobile phone footage. But essentially, it's a kind of story of a girl who's haunted by herself. She starts getting haunted by her ghost before she dies. And so it's got that whole kind of weird thing, and all this stuff kind of comes out about her background and what actually happened to her and stuff that was going on. And it was just very, very effective and very, very creepy. And you can watch the clips from it on YouTube, but I would recommend watching the whole film, because even though that clip, which I think rivals the kind of the scares and things like The Woman in Black, those kind of real proper creepy kind of flesh crawling scares that a lot of the J horror had that we've spoken about. You need to see the whole film to see it in context, because that's when it really comes. And it's just got like a very strange feel to the film, and it just feels like it's real, and like it's sad. There's a real kind of mournfulness about the film, and I believe, unsurprisingly, there's an American remake on the cards. But what about you guys? What do you think? How about you, Nathan?
Lake Mungo is absolutely the best film of the 2000s. It is amazing, incredible. Like, I can't say enough good things about this movie. It's scary, and like you said, it's very mournful, because at the end, I'm not going to give any spoilers away, but at the end, like the tapes of the mom who is talking about a vision she had is intercut with tapes of the daughter when she was alive and visions that she had, and the way they intercut them is so like creepy and sad at the same time. And like you said, when we finally figure out what was troubling her, what she saw that night at Lake Mungo, that was like a jump out of my seat moment, because I don't know why that terrified me as much as it did. It's just a very scary sequence. I mean, I love this movie so much. I mean, it may even be in my top 10 of all time.
Really? Well, okay. Well, thank you, Nathan.
That's a lot of love.
That's a lot of love.
I love it.
What about you, Erik?
Yeah, I loved it as well, I have to say. Really, and it was actually thanks to you, Justin. You recommended it, so I sought it out because I'd never heard of it before. And there is that one standout sequence, I think that Nathan mentioned there, where they find her mobile phone footage of when she went to Lake Mungo, and it's really, really eerie. And even before that, there are creepy scenes and that. And you sort of normally, when it comes to found footage, I prefer the found footage just to be a pure found footage film with no inserts, whereas this is done like a documentary, as you said, and normally that sort of lessens the impact, but I thought this was effectively creepy.
Okay, and what about you, Joseph?
Complete garbage.
Ooh.
No, I'm just kidding. I love Lake Mungo, and if you hadn't have picked it, it would have been my number 2 pick. Like you said, it is abnormally creepy, and at the same time, so sad. I mean, it's like one of the only horror films that could actually make you get misty-eyed. And another thing I like about it is that you're not sure if what they're experiencing in the house is paranormal or not. I mean, at first, you have basically they capture what turns out to be. Well, I won't spoil it, but it turns out to be not quite what it seems. And then later on in the film, they capture something that they're not sure what it is. But when they find out what it is, it has something to do with I'll just say an intruder. That scene for me terrified me almost as much as the scene where they're out at the dried up lake. I mean, knowing that there's this huge backstory to this girl that would invite this, I don't want to say, I'll just say a presence into their house in the middle of the night. It shook me. And then that scene where they're out, at the lake and it's all dried up and she's been feeling uneasy. And then when she actually captures on her phone what it is, wow. I think me and Nathan and I, we watched it with Grant, and I think all three of us at the exact same moment went, holy fuck, just really loud. I mean, it was really that scary. And, like Nathan said, the very end where they intercut the footage, it's just so effective and so sad and so creepy. And it's such an underrated film. And, I'm not a huge fan of a lot of the After Dark films. I mean, they have some good ones and they have some really bad ones, but they really lucked out with Lake Mungo because it's an extraordinary film.
Cool. Well, I'm glad that's got a ringing endorsement, as it were. But we're going to go on to something completely different now, and I think it's probably time that we get on to our birthday celebrations and our feature presentation. And of course, that is the film Pieces. So what we'll do to get the party started is here is the trailer for Pieces.
Warning. What you will see in the movie Pieces cannot be revealed, cannot be described, cannot even be imagined. And you don't have to go to Texas for a chainsaw massacre. Pieces. It's exactly what you think it is. Pieces. Absolutely no one under 17 will be admitted.
In Boston, in 1942, little Timmy is caught playing with a jigsaw puzzle by his mother that depicts a naked lady. She tells him off and insists he gets rid of it. Slightly overreacting, he grabs an axe and whacks her over the head multiple times and saws her head off. Cut to the present-day Boston, 40 years later, a young girl skates into a mirror on the street, which seemingly reignites the latent psychosis in the killer. Soon, someone is stalking a Boston University and dismembering nubile teenage girls with a chainsaw. The police, led by Lieutenant Bracken, try and discover who the killer is by sending in an undercover agent posing as a tennis ace. She is joined by Kendall, a student at the university, as they dodge chainsaws, kung fu, and delirious overacting. Now, Pieces is a film that I've been called out on a few times because my review on Hysteria Lives basically says it's a piece of garbage. And I kind of say something along the lines of Pieces should have been called Feces. Now, we did talk about doing a top 3 of films that have done a 180-degree turn or 360-degree turn on, and this is one of them for me. Is that at the time I reviewed it, it must have been, I mean, we're talking 13, 14 years ago, perhaps. And I think the reason that I hated Pieces so much was that I'd kind of, when I started up Hysteria Lives, what I was doing was I was reviewing all the films that I wanted to review. You know, I was starting off with the good films, you know, Friday the 13th, 1 and 2, House and Sorority Row, you know, Terror Train, all those kind of films that I was working my way through. And watching Pieces, I was hoping, I hoped it was going to be a good slasher movie. Pieces is not a good slasher movie. I mean, by any real terms, it's a pretty bad movie, but that's where its strength lies. It is a phenomenally fun movie. You know, it's the archetypical kind of grindhouse party movie, and so I have, since I've written that review, and I'm very tempted to actually go back and rewrite that review, to actually say, you know, why my mind's changed with this. But it's one of the funnest slasher movies there is, really. You know, it kind of it all the way through. I mean, it's got everything you could possibly want. You know, to a slasher movie. I mean, it's jam packed with jaw dropping moments. Overacting, you know, hilarious dialogue, ultra gore, you know. I mean, it's got no other slasher movie, surprisingly, has got a scene with a topless teenage girl being chased through a locker room by a man with a chainsaw. And you think, well, it's a no-brainer, because that is and that's going to archetypical slasher movie moment. So
Fatal Games has a topless woman being chased with a javelin, is it?
Yes, that is true, but not a chainsaw.
Not a chainsaw, though. No, I'll give you that.
No, but it's kind of, it does all those things, and it does them really well. I mean, it also, I kind of, you know, just very quickly, because I'll come back and talk about it in a bit more when I've asked what you guys think of it, and I'm pretty sure that we're not going to have too much dissent with this, but it's one of those films, and this is what I love about the kind of early 80s and 70s horror movies and grindhouses. Sometimes it transcends itself, and you know, like the scene where the nosy reporter gets killed on a waterbed is incredibly well shot. You know, and it's just like, it's almost a kind of balletic kind of sort of you know, masterclass of editing, and the way that the killer is kind of jet black with a flashing blade, and it's in slow motion. Goes to show the director, you know, knew what he was doing in some scenes, but not in others, and that's, you know, that's why it's just kind of a smorgasbord of fun, you know, and so it's a great film to celebrate our first birthday with. So, what about you guys? How about you, Nathan? What are your thoughts on Pieces?
Oh, Pieces is incredible. I mean, it's an amazing movie, and I like the fact that when you were speaking about the skateboarding girl, basically, and what you were talking about when you introduced it, a lot of people throw that away as being pointless, but no, it serves a purpose. You know, her hitting that mirror is basically a shattering of the killer's insanity when he witnesses that, and it reminds him of when his mom hit the mirror when he was a kid, and it brings back all those memories and ignites him to want to rebuild his mother. So I think a lot of people don't see the pure genius in this film. And
see, I mentioned that very fact once, and I got laughed at for it.
It's a very valid fact, very valid. And I think Pieces, you know, obviously is really funny. I mean, a lot of the dialogue, you know, of course, you got Linda George's classic, you know, bastard thrice, which I love. And, you know, like, you know, I can't even get over all the dialogue. There's so much dialogue in that movie, Justin, that I didn't envy you having to come up with the little montage at the beginning, because there's too many. I mean, I couldn't think of what best to put in there. The scene where she gets attacked by the kung fu guy, and then he blames it on bad chop suey, and then just walks off. I mean, he just attacked a police officer. I mean, nothing's going to happen to him. What, because he ate bad food? I mean, that I don't get that. I mean, okay.
Note to self: blame it on food in future.
Yes.
No, last time in stomach. Now I'm on ground. I love it. So
Borderline
unintentionally
racist, Joseph.
So unintentionally racist as well.
Oh gosh. Oh man. And let's see. I love the line when the dean is talking to the officers, and he's getting the professor to come in to talk to them. And right before the professor comes in, the dean goes, "Ah, yes, he's unmarried and lives with his mother." Why did he throw that in?
But it
the poor
automatically rules him out as being the killer, doesn't it? Because he has a mother.
He has the mother, exactly. That's another genius move on the director's part. And I like the fact that this college student, Kendall, who could be a potential suspect since some of the girls, he had flings with because he's the campus stud, and I put that in air quotes. He's had flings with all these girls, and the detectives seem to trust him enough to actually let him in on, information involving the murders. They let him turn into amateur detective with them. That's a great move on their part.
Well, I kind of saw it as a kind of the complete opposite of a film like Butcher Baker, Nightmare Maker, where you've got the sheriff is sure the teenage boy's the killer all the way through the film, even when it's very clear actually his aunt's doing the killing. Where you've got your Christopher George saying to Kendall, this kid is not any part of this, but he's got no evidence of that because Kendall gets chased out of by the gardener, doesn't he? But he finds him with the bloody dismembered girl with a chainsaw, and then sees Kendall running away, but the police don't even think to finger him.
That's true. Okay, finger him. Yeah.
Oh
dear. Oh, I pressed the.
You're naughty.
Oh, you didn't press the.
You're a naughty little boy.
You didn't press your matron button for that one.
I know. Well, my computer's it's freezing a bit. So.
Uh-oh. The only other thing I was going to say is I was very shocked to see them show full frontal male nudity in this movie. That was kind of unexpected, to say the least.
Yes. I was thinking about that. There's very few slasher
sure you were.
from the Golden Age.
You just wish it was Willard.
Oh, yeah, you just wish it was Willard, don't you, Eric?
Yes.
You dirty beast. So what did you think, Eric? Of pieces?
Well, I thought it was utter trash, and I'd much prefer to sit down and watch maybe Out of Africa or The English Patient, to be honest.
Yes.
No?
And,
you don't believe me?
No, we don't believe a word of that, do we?
No. Of course, Pieces, Let Me Count the Ways I Love Thee. My love for this film is possibly as strong as my love for the standard classics like Halloween or Friday the 13th. I think
How
the
about
film
Dirty Dancing?
Yeah, it's up there with Dirty Dancing as well.
Wow.
It works as both an outrageous slasher movie and an insane, I assume unintentional comedy. It doesn't waste any time in getting going. Within the first 10 minutes, you have a woman chopped up with an axe. You have that pathetic skateboarder who veers into a large mirror at 0.000001 miles per hour, yet manages to kill herself. You have the al fresco student who's decapitated with a chainsaw. And that's all within the first 10 minutes of the film. It settles down there for about 10 minutes, and we meet all the sort of sketchy, generally stupid characters, including ones who don't notice that the shady-looking chap that has just joined them into the elevator is hiding a chainsaw behind his back, which is a bit weird. And the film, as we've said, it's just littered with the most absurd moments. Like when Christopher George asks I think he's a biology teacher, he asks him if the mutilated corpse and the bloody chainsaw that are right next to the mutilated corpse are in any way connected. Duh. And then you have Linda Day George's character is a professional tennis player who moonlights as a detective. I mean, what? What? I mean, who came up with this plot? I mean, God, it's like Scream 5 starring Venus Williams or something. And then you have Kendall. I mean, he's kind of a nerd, but he's a ladies' man. And I love the way he's banging all the local, all the sort of campus bimbos. And he ticks one of them off for being a bit too vocal in bed. Cause she's like, oh, Kendall, oh, yes. And then later on in a roundabout way, he asks Linda Day George if she wants to shag. I mean, he has to be the most unlikable final boy stroke girl in any slasher film, I think. Joseph will probably appreciate that there must have been a sort of serious lack of blouse or bra budget on the film, as most of the ladies get their norks out at some stage, apart from Linda Day George, of course, because she was a bit too highbrow for that. Now, for all its cheesiness, there is one strong moment in it, and you touched on it, Justin. It's the scene where the killer is attacking the girl on the waterbed, and certain shots of it are done in slow motion, and I thought that was kind of reminiscent of Argento. Now, I don't know if that was, well, I assume it was by accident that happened because the rest of the film is so cheesy, but I thought that was quite effective. But the most bamboozling thing for me about Pieces is that when I first saw this film in the 80s, like you, Justin, I sat there and thought, oh God, this is rubbish. This is boring. Why am I watching this? This is crap. Now, I know the version I was watching was cut and had all the gore scenes cut out, but the cheese was still there, and I didn't appreciate that. I mean, what was I thinking? I know I was 14, but I mean, when I was 14, I liked Mel and Kim and I liked Bananarama. So why the fuck did I not like Pieces? I don't understand myself at all.
I thought you still liked Bananarama.
I do still like Bananarama, I'll have you know. Do you know what? In 1983, I was in the Bananarama fan club.
I was as well.
Yeah, for 1 year, but then I ditched them in favor of Howard Jones.
Oh, there you go. Howard Jones is much better.
Actually, the freebie, the gifts in Howard Jones's fan club were much better anyway. I mean, I got badges and records and stuff that I didn't get.
Not to go off on an aside, but I met him a few years ago. He was incredible. Yeah, he was awesome.
Was he nice?
Yes, he had these silver. I mean, he had silver tennis shoes on, and I asked him where he got them, and he's like, well, "You know what? I don't remember." I'm like, "I got to have your tennis shoes. How much do you want for them?" He's like, "No, they're not for sale."
I'd say, Justin, you'd probably like Howard Jones because he's a vegetarian.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because we used to get. When I was in his fan club for 2 years, we used to get a magazine, and there used to be vegetarian recipes in it every week, or it was 2 months we used to get the magazine because he was a devout vegetarian. Yeah. Okay. Well, but back to Pieces. Yeah. Back to Pieces.
As an aside.
Yes. The reason I suppose I didn't like it was because it wasn't polished and pristine like the slashers I was used to at the time, which was the Halloween franchise, the Friday the 13th franchise. You know? But I think there's so many levels on which you can enjoy Pieces. I mean, you've got the extreme gore if you're a gore hound, and you've got the cheese if you're into sort of, comedy and kitsch. And, of course, it's got Paul Smith in it as well.
Somebody left?
No, nobody left. Somebody entered.
Ooh. That deserves a Kenneth.
Matron, please. I'm not that kind of doctor.
Who entered, Nathan?
Wes. Say hello, Wes.
Hi, Wes.
Hi, Wes.
Hi, Wes.
He says hello.
Okay. Well, how about you, Nathan? Tell us the ways you love Pieces.
Do you mean Joseph?
Oh, Joseph. Sorry, Joseph. Yes,
Nathan's
Joseph.
already gave his piece.
Red wine.
I've only one glass.
Yeah, I love Pieces. How about the telephone in the prologue? No one's touched upon that.
Oh, Touchstone? Yes, it's Touchstone. Yeah. 1942.
Yeah. No, Pieces is fun. A lot of fun. I mean, it's so awful, but that's part of the charm. It's a great double bill material with something like Nail Gun Massacre,
or Bloody Moon.
Yeah, or Bloody Moon. Yeah, or like a trifecta you could have. But Pieces is the kind of film where you're watching it, and the entire time, every cast member has a look on their face like, "Oh my God, I really hope the check clears on this one, because what am I doing in this film?" None more so evident than like Christopher George, who just basically looks mortified the entire film. And it's so much fun. There's so much bad dialogue. It shifts in tone from like so kind of kooky and bizarre, and then like you said, it has that waterbed scene which really stands out from all the weirdness. And of course, big spoiler alert, it gets to that totally whacked out ending where basically the human Jigsaw makes one final grab, actually comes to life and makes that grab for the hero, at his bits and tackle. It's just so weird, so strange, and so bizarre and out there, the entire film. I mean, how could you not like it? It's just so much fun.
Yeah. Well,
it is.
Sorry?
I said that it is.
That it is.
It is a film. It is a film I rented. I guess back in 96, 97, I got it as a 5 for $5 deal at a video store. And when I first watched it, like you guys, I was like, this is crap. I mean, this is nowhere near as good as, say, Terror Train or something. I wanted polished, I wanted quick, and I didn't appreciate it until, later when I just started, really getting into the whole, trashy cinema thing. And that's when I saw it for what it really is. And, since then I've totally come to love it a lot.
I got a question for you guys that I really need some help with. At one point, the detective says something along the lines of, who knows, these days, we're just out buying clothes without labels and trying them on for size. What does that mean? And what does it have to do with the killings?
I think he means that they're kind of feeling in the dark. They're kind of just going by guesswork, kind of.
Yeah.
Can I just add that if any of our female or even male listeners have a particular liking for Christopher George, one of our listeners, Curtis Dalton, posted on our Facebook page, The Hysteria Continues, pictures of Christopher George from a Playgirl shoot he did it in the early 70s, from 1974. If you go to our Facebook page, you'll see them. You'll see the link he's put up, and you get to see his winkle and everything.
Oh, do you see his winkle? I didn't see.
You do see his winkle.
Oh, okay. Well,
so if anyone fancies a bit of Christopher George, the late Christopher George, you can check him out there in all his glory.
Well, this he was very good in this, wasn't he? I mean, I thought he was. He was kind of chewing the scenery. It had like nice kind of chemistry, I thought, with Lindsay Day George, but obviously because they were married. A couple of the other bits that I kind of when I watched it again, I took notes, is I do love Edmund Purdom as Dean Fowler, and I love the fact that he tries to pass off the unfortunate incident of the girl having a head chain sawed off outside the college as an unfortunate accident. Quite how that...
Well, it was. He was trying to trim the rose bush, and she just accidentally got in the way.
But did you know, now this is a bit of trivia, we'll get on to trivia shortly, but did you know that the girl on the skateboard didn't die? Because the girl on the skateboard is the same girl who gets her head chain sawed off.
Really?
It's the same one, yes.
I didn't twig that. Yes. All Europeans look the same to me.
If you go back and watch it, it's the same girl, because we couldn't find any interviews. I did look for people to interview for this, but Lindsay Day George has basically retired from acting, I think, in 1990, and she will not speak about this film. I know, apparently, Eli Roth tried to get her to talk about this film for the Arrow DVD release of Pieces, and he tried to, he's somebody in the know who would probably be able to get to her, and she just won't talk about this film and the films that she's made for whatever reason, I don't know. But on IMDb there is a woman who claims to be Skateboard Girl, who posts on the IMDb boards for Pieces, and she goes into some details about the film, and she says that they actually cut out a scene after her crashing through the mirror. But if I watched it again today, and it is the same girl, because you think she's been killed in that accident, but actually it's the same girl. So what happens is the killer sees the mirror smashing, and then that reignites his madness, and then he goes after her and takes her head, basically. That's
terrible.
Sorry?
Well, it's just awful that she survived that mirror shattering, and then once she's healed up, okay, now I'm going to kill you with a chainsaw.
I'm just bamboozled about how she managed to break the mirror in the first place, judging by the speed she approached it at.
Well, I guess they're quite fragile, aren't they?
They're not that fragile, just.
Okay, well, we won't be looking for logic in Pieces, I don't think. The other things I loved Paul Brown stroking his chainsaw. I mean,
Paul
talk about
Smith.
chewing the scenery. Paul Smith, stroking his chainsaw when Dean Fowler sort of talks to him. I mean, that's kind of talk about chewing the scenery.
I heard that, Erik.
And also, I quite like Kendall. I thought Kendall was quite, he wasn't. I don't know why you thought he was so hateful. Yeah, I mean, I really
wasn't hateful towards him, but I mean, he was just doing all the ladies. Sleazy. He's kind of sleazy, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't mind it. I mean, I thought, what about his friend though? The
Justin and Kendall, two of a kind.
No, well, his particularly unattractive friend, the one who goes, Casanova.
Justin and Kenny sitting in a tree. Piecing.
Well, one other little bit. One other little bit of trivia.
Each other. I liked his comeuppance too.
Oh yeah, quite comeuppance for him.
Yes, it was quite comeuppance for him. But the director said that the scene he shot with the girl when she says, "You can put something on my mouth to shut me up," or whatever it was, he was apparently he got excited. He was in bed with her and he got out, and one of the takes they got out, he had hard on.
Yes, and he discloses that information on the Grindhouse DVD.
That's
that would be so humiliating.
Yes, and he said they had to get him a bag of ice, didn't they, to put on his genitals to stop him getting excited. So that's a little bit of trivia for you. But we'll get on to more trivia shortly. But is there anything else you want to say about it? Or should we move on to a little bit of dialogue and some trivia and then come back and talk about the film in a little bit? Yeah?
Ooh, dialogue, yay.
Dialogue. Well, let's go for...
Dialogue rules.
Let's go for one of these. Oops.
Hi, what's going down? You've been studying
2 hours of European history. I'm going to the pool.
There's our favorite professor. How'd you like to make it with him, Susan?
Are you kidding? The campus class?
Oh, that's not nice. I think he's a sugar plum.
Down, girl. You know what they say about sugar.
Bye. Yeah, take care.
About sugar.
Yeah, what do they say about sugar, Erik?
I have no idea. I think the dubbing artists were just trying to fill any kind of dialogue they could to match the flapping mouths of the actresses. So they just made up nonsense.
I know. And another bit of
maybe
dialogue.
They were going to say, what they say about sugar, it's sweet. I don't know.
It may be. And it's just bizarre because they're talking about Jack Taylor, who plays, who's the Professor Brown. That's what I was thinking, Professor Brown, who's supposedly, gay. He's a kind of, and they kind of, but obviously Jack Brown been in some wonderful movies. One of
Jack Taylor.
Jack Taylor, sorry. Jack Taylor.
God.
God.
You're obsessed with Brown, but I expect that of you.
It's only because I've written down my notes. I've got my Brown and my Taylor mixed up. So anyway, what?
Nothing.
I don't know. Just the way you said it was fun.
Keep going.
No, keep going. I was going to say that he was in Horror of the Zombies, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yes, and actually an American actor who was in lots of Spanish.
Lots of Jess Franco movies.
Yes, for his sins. So
I like Jess Franco.
Sorry.
I like Jess Franco.
Well, I like Bloody Moon, but some of those films are a little bit hard going, aren't they?
Well, yeah, I suppose, in fairness.
In fairness. But here's another bit of dialogue, which I know, Erik, you like this one.
Have you heard the latest? They've just installed a waterbed in the training room.
Have you ever been laid on a waterbed?
The most beautiful thing in the world is smoking pot and fucking on a waterbed at the same time.
Here he comes.
Watch this. Oh, Professor Brown. Excuse me, sir. Can I ask you something? What are the pectorals?
My friends all laugh at me.
They say mine are funny.
I assure you, you have nothing to worry about.
Thank you, sir. But where are they?
Here. Right here.
Those pesky students.
Yes.
I have a question for the three of you. Have either of you ever smoked pot and fucked on a waterbed?
No.
Not at the same time.
I've eaten funny brownies. Does that count?
Fucking on a waterbed?
No.
I can't say I have either.
No. Well, there's something.
Does anyone know why you'd have a waterbed in the sort of gym area of a high school? Well, is it a high school or is it university?
That's a valid question. Yeah.
It's a valid question.
Maybe they get tired, and their muscles get all fatigued and they need to relax.
True.
They just want to lay down.
Yeah.
Could well be that. So, have we got any trivia? Who wants to go first? Because I've got lots and lots of trivia for this film, but I think Joseph, what have you got for us?
I don't really have anything. I didn't have a whole lot of time to go looking for pieces trivia, so I'll leave it to you and everyone else.
Yeah, you didn't have much time because you're too busy thinking about Pamela Anderson.
Who?
Pamela Anderson.
I don't know who that is.
You do know who it is. You love her.
No, I do not love her.
You do. I have some trivia, Justin.
Oh, sorry, Erik Brown.
Everyone's
Brown and his Taylor's mixed up.
Yeah,
there's a Thrillfall.
Yes, that's it.
Okay,
Brown
Erik.
Thrillfall. Yeah. There you
Well,
go.
Nathan, do you have anything?
Mm.
No.
No.
Okay, well, I'll give you
Erik.
what I have.
Ooh.
With all my might. Okay, the film apparently is based on a script that was submitted for a proposed 2-part TV miniseries called Jigsaw, and he adapted it into what we now know as Pieces. The film was shot in Madrid in Spain. The scene where the chainsaw bisects the woman across the stomach was achieved by cutting the carcass of a dead pig. Close your ears, Justin, with a chainsaw. Don't close your ears with a chainsaw.
No.
I didn't mean that. Yeah. The other piece of information I had was that Kendall had a stiffy when he got out of bed and the scene had to be cut. The score, which I think reminds me a bit of Goblin's music for the European release of Dawn of the Dead, which I think is quite good, is dismissed by the director. And I really don't know how to pronounce his name. Is it Juan Piquet Simon?
Juan Piquet Simon.
Juan Piquet Simon, that'll do me.
They call him JP for short, obviously.
JP, that'll do. He hates
recently passed away, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, actually. It was earlier, it was early last year. It was about a year ago, was it?
Yeah, a year ago.
Anyway, I think that the score is quite good and it's quite fitting for the film, but he had something else in mind, but this library music was imposed on him and used for the international version. Do I have any? Oh, yes. Do you know the website latarnia.com?
No.
Latarnia?
What's that?
No? It's anyway, they interviewed Juan Piquet or Piquet Simon about Pieces. They asked him about the scene where the Kung Fu professor appears out of nowhere and starts kicking the shit out of Linda Day George for no reason. He says, the Chinese guy appeared by chance. He came with one of the producers who was shooting a martial arts movie in Madrid. I was always thinking on ways to extend the length of the movie, so I invited him to appear in one scene. He agreed, and that way I added a few more minutes, creating an action scene, and also created suspicion on the Ian Serra character, who is Kendall, and also a more close relationship between the police sergeant and informer, who is Kendall as well, which leads to an erotic relationship. Whatever. Yes. I think the Kung Fu professor was just added in to bump up the time with no actual care or, thought gone into how, he should fit into the plot.
And we thanked them for it.
Oh, we do, yeah. It's one of the highlights. Now I'm on ground.
No, I'm on ground.
Something I eat.
Yes. That's all the background information I have, Justin, so you take it away.
Okay, well, I've got basically I don't know, have any of you seen the film The House That Screamed from 1969,
yes.
Spanish film?
Yeah.
You have?
No.
That's basically, although it's, I've never seen it. Well, I have seen it credited as such, but it's like an inspiration, I think, for this film because it's set in a girls' school. And it's a period piece. It's kind of, I think it's set in Victorian times, but girls are going missing. It's kind of a bit of proto slasher, and basically at the end, the person who's killing them is cutting them up and creating a doll or basically the similar idea from Pieces is basically was already done in that film. Did you say you had seen it, Joseph?
Yes, I saw it a long time ago, and I was actually right before you got into it, I was like, when I first saw it, I was like, hey, this is a lot like Pieces. And I was like, but it predates Pieces, so, they obviously probably may or may not have got some inspiration from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the other things I've got, so that was obviously an inspiration for the film. The film was pretty successful in America when it came out. It grossed about just over $2 million, which is around about $4.5 million in today's money. On its first week of release, it went in at number 5 on the variety charts, ahead of Return of the Jedi at number 7. And if you make a comparison with what's number 5 in the charts this week in America, it's David Fincher's Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. So I'm not saying that Pieces was that, kind of that level, but it certainly shows back in 1983, when I think it was released in America, that the film, was pretty successful. What else have we got here? Talking about the producers, it was Dick Randall and Steve Minasian. I'm not sure how to say Minasian, but basically the film was inspired by obviously the success of Halloween and Friday the 13th, and if you probably saw in one of the students' rooms, there was a Friday the 13th poster on the wall. The director, J.P. Simon, I think it's probably the easier way to say it, was, and is sometimes credited as that, he was Randall and Steve Minasian approached him to direct Last House on the Left Part 2, because Steve Minasian was one of the financiers and the producers of that film. And so they had the rights to make a sequel to Last House on the Left. J.P. Simon said he didn't like the idea of doing that, so he decided not to do it. He said he got given a treatment. I think you said, Eric, didn't you? It was kind of a very short treatment for what was originally called Jigsaw. He says he wrote the script in 15 days. One of the things that struck me when he was interviewed, and I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but it was in a similar way to how Claudio Fragassi is with Troll 2, is that J.P. Simon didn't seem to have an appreciation of how campy people possibly found the film. He said when he made the film, he was told to keep down the eroticism because the American market didn't. It's not like with something like Jesus Franco would make films with lots of boobies and muffs and stuff, and he had quite a lot of that in Pieces, but he was told to keep it down a bit. Quite sadly, actually, I watched the interview with him today on the Grindhouse releasing disc, and he was still talking about making a sequel to Pieces, and he actually said he had part financing. I don't know when the interview was shot, but he obviously wasn't able to get that off the ground. So Pieces never was shot. The sequel was never shot.
Wasn't it supposed to be called More Pieces or something like that? I think so. It's like a pun.
Yeah.
In the title.
Yeah, exactly. And so I don't know, it would have been great to find out what that was meant to be, but I think sometimes you have to be careful what you wish for, because I can't imagine it could have ever recaptured the zany kind of greatness of the original. Just some other random notes I've got is that the film was shot in Madrid mostly. Some of it was shot in Boston, a few pickup shots apparently shot by Second Unit in Boston, but it was shot at a private mansion, not a school or a university, after it was abandoned. When the film was released in America, it was very controversial, actually. I mean, it's one of the major films that got one of the films that got a major backlash from feminists, and apparently they wrote "sexist pigs" on the poster. Now I've got this great in front of me. I've got this great article from the Ukiah? I don't know. How would you pronounce? It's in California. It's UKIAH. I'm not how you pronounce it, but it's a local paper, October the 18th, 1983, with the headline, "Violent Film Protested Here," and its demonstrators protested the showing of Pieces last weekend. And it's this great article about, basically talking about it. And I'll just read a little bit of it. It says, "The advertisements proclaim you don't have to go to Texas for a chainsaw massacre, but if a group of local citizens have their way, Ukiahans would have to travel to Texas or further to see Pieces, a controversial new film that seems to be redefining the limits of poor taste." And it goes on. The movie's plot reportedly revolves around a mass murderer stalking university campus with a chainsaw. And then it goes. Do you know that the scene in John Waters' Polyester, where they're outside protesting his porno film? It's a bit kind of like that, because it's got this people saying it's terrible, says Sue Sellers, a Filio woman who walked a picket line outside Ukiah Theatre No. 4 last weekend. She says, "It's sickening that men need to see the stimulation," commented Kate Marienchild, also a Filio. "Why do men find the slaughter of women entertaining?" And it just kind of goes on, and then they talk to the theatre manager, Jay Allen, and he said to them, he said he doesn't want the movie here either, but it wasn't his choice. and then it just kind of goes on, and it just sort of and then it turns out that they hadn't actually watched the film, but where is it? It just kind of goes. He finally says it's the person who runs the movie theatre says it's doing okay, but it's no blockbuster. He said the movie would probably finish its run within a week or two, regardless of demonstration. It would have to be a pretty big protest to have any effect, he said, of the action. But if they're turning people away from the theatre in general, that will be a different matter. And it just goes on to say, Peace has been resoundingly rebuffed by movie critics across the land. Some have gone to great lengths to emphasise that they themselves had only viewed a portion of the gory flick before walking out of the theatre in disgust. Peter Stack, who generally provides glowing reviews of rather trashy movies in the San Francisco Chronicle, on Monday hammered out another nail in the coffin of a movie that he said should have been buried rather than released. So it just kind of goes to show, again, if ever we needed proof that these films were kind of roundly derided by critics. And another just very quick review I've got here, and it's it just says, Pieces, it's hard to dislike the advertising campaign, a clever one, which tells us one doesn't have to go to Texas to find a chainsaw massacre. Odds are, however, it'll be equally difficult to like the film itself, which promises to open and close with gore. The casting certainly isn't a drawing card, with Christopher George already seen this year in such garbage as Gates of Hell and Mortuary, top billed in the lead role. According to Showplace 6 manager Doug Leitner, the film has no rating, meaning no one under 17 should be allowed in at all, but he'll probably stamp it with an R. So again, yes, it goes to show that it was pretty much kind of derided. I've got a few other things. If you're not bored of, do you want to hear some more?
Well, I was going to ask you.
Not going to go to sleep, but yeah, go on.
You can go ahead if you want, but I was just going to ask.
We'll break it up.
What did you think of? What do you think of the alternate titles? I know the one is Chainsaw Devil, and the other is 1,000 Cries Has the Night. I mean, do you think which title, and stacked against Pieces, which title do you like the best?
Well, 1,000 Cries Has the Night makes it sound like a giallo.
And I think that's what they were trying to go for with the.
Well, no, it's very much in the slasher mode, isn't it? The American slasher. So I think Pieces was probably the best title for it in the end. Or Jigsaw.
I thought they were trying to go for a giallo with the killer, wearing the black and the fedora and the gloves.
So I read that it was actually it was based on a cartoon character called The Shadow, which kind of looked like that. But then, of course, that was
a comic book character, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it sounds like
yeah.
So, but yeah, no, I kind of like 1,000 Cries Has the Night, but I agree. I think Pieces basically does what it says on the tin, doesn't it? And to be honest,
it's exactly what it says it is.
It is, yeah.
And I think
what I like sort of watching the DVD interview on the Grindhouse release with JP Simon is that he, as you said, like Claudio Fragresso, he thinks the film is kind of at a higher level than it is. He accuses other slasher films, particularly Friday the 13th, of copying Bay of Blood, the Mario Bava film. And he says that Pieces has absolutely no resemblance to the American slasher film like Friday the 13th. He says it's very unique and it's ahead of its time. And I think,
yes,
that's what I think.
Yeah. Well, I've just got a couple of other things just before we get on to, so we wrap things up with this, but it's just to say Dick Randall, who was, he was quite a character. He made like kung fu, horror and nudie films. He gave us the giallo classics such as French Sex Murders. He also filmed some of Jane Mansfield's, or filmed and produced some of Jane Mansfield's kind of late era films like Primitive Love in Italy. He also made a quick buck off the wonderfully trashy. Have you any of you seen The Wild Wild World of Jane Mansfield? The kind of documentary.
No,
you must see that because that's fantastic. They did it after she died, and they start it off with the car crash. And then they have lots of footage. She did actually make the film, but it's just her going around kind of nudie clubs and sunbathing topless and on a boat traveling to Capri, and then they've got like a girl band playing guitars.
Doesn't sound like my cup of tea at all.
No, but I think it's very campy. It's
oh well, now it does then.
Yeah. No, it's kind of it's really good fun. But anyway, he did that. But also as far as slasher movies go, he went on to produce Don't Open Till Christmas and Slaughter High. So he's the man behind that. Now, the other producer was, or the person behind it was Steve Manasian, who who basically also is a bit of an unsung hero in the slasher genre, and arguably helped get kick-started, because he, funnily enough, when you're talking about Bay of Blood, Twitch the Death Nerve being an influence, he was actually one of the men. He released films like Twitch the Death Nerve and Slaughter Hotel in the States at drive-ins. He also part-funded Last House on the Left as part of Georgetown Productions. He put up the money for Cunningham's Friday the 13th. And then he admits that lots of the gore from Friday the 13th Part 2 was inspired by Twitch the Death Nerve, but also he had lots of input in the sequels as well. He was the person who got to choose the directors for the films before they went over to New Line. He says that on Pieces he was only able to stay on set for 2 weeks, and so he was a bit kind of saying it was a bit of a mishmash because the director didn't really speak very good English. But he said that the film opened in New York with about 50 to 70 prints, and it's released by Film Ventures. That he says, although the film was very successful, both him and Dick Randall lost money on it. Because the guy behind Film Ventures famously legged it to Brazil or just vanished with all the takings, and then the film got released on Western Video in the States, and that went out of business. And interestingly, whether or not this is ever going to go anywhere, but he's semi-retired. But he says he has a slasher script called Winter Break that he wants to make, which has yet to see the light of day. I think that is pretty much my. That's everything that I've got, apart from I can, if you're interested, I've got a little bit here about what the skateboard girl says about filming, what it was, her time on the film. Would you like to hear that?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. She says, I presume she is actually kosher, she's actually the real girl, but she says, on the IMDb board, she says, "Hi, I've already posted on this matter, but for some reason they've deleted. I'm a skateboard girl, so I can tell you firsthand. You're right about the smashed mirror triggering the killer, but a scene just after the mirror smash was cut out of the movie, where the girl is standing amongst the broken mirror, apologising for the incident, so everyone can see that she is fine. The next day, the killer cuts off her head with a chainsaw, and it's the same girl. On another note, I don't know if anyone noticed at the end of the movie where the bookcase turns and the body falls out, they're two different girls. I spent 2 days at the shoot being the head of the corpse. I swung around on a bookshelf and fell onto the actor. As they obviously wanted more flesh to be shown, they cut it and use another girl for the fall. But if you look carefully, when the bookcase swings round, it's me." So, yeah, it's all a bit bad. I'll have to see if we can get an interview of her at some point.
Well, it sounds like, some of this, if that's true, some of the stuff that they cut out would have made the film a little more coherent. And the fact that they cut out a lot of this stuff made it, the classic funny film that it is.
Yeah, I know. It's funny, but yeah. Well, that's Pieces. You got anything left to say about the film that we haven't already said?
No, I think I've covered
I'm missing something, but
yeah, I hate when we do this because once we've edited the podcast and I go back and listen to it, and I'm like, oh man, there's something I should have brought up, and I'm trying to think about that with Pieces, but I think I've pretty much exhausted everything.
We didn't spoil it.
No, we didn't.
Didn't spoil
I'm surprised.
It's a first. Yeah, it's a first.
Well, okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed our Pieces retrospective. We've got some feedback coming up. So let's just have a little break, and we'll be back in a second with some feedback.
Hi, this is Russell Todd from Chopping Mall. He Knows You're Alone in Friday the 13th Part 2, and you're listening to The Hysteria Continues.
Okay, and welcome back. So we're going to do a little bit of feedback, and I think I've got quite a lot this time. Before we start, Joseph, do you want to, have you got to hand the contact details for the show?
Oh, I've always got it to hand. Let's see. Yeah, if you want to write in... Yeah, if you want to write in, that's the.hysteria.continues@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter, twitter.com/THC_podcast. We are on Facebook. Just search for The Hysteria Continues. You can leave us a voicemail at 858-233-9281. And if you're so inclined, you can purchase a t-shirt at cafepress.com/The Hysteria Continues.
Exactly. If you want to be
if you want a T-shirt of me looking like I'm 57 years old.
Yeah, I think you look quite good.
No, I do like the image. I think it's very good, very well done.
It's designed by our friend Rembrandt, 36 from the forums. Robert
very
Long.
talented.
It's very true to life. Yes,
it is. No, I think it's very, very good.
Yeah,
it's got a cat flushing a toilet on it as well, which is.
It's got a big bloody knife and a chainsaw and a big piece of cheese, and Eric's holding a picture of Toya. I mean, what more could you ask for?
It's like real life. But yes, okay. Well, thank you for writing in, and people have been in. We haven't had any phone calls this week, have we? But we have had some feedback.
What's the phone number before we continue?
Oh, I thought I'd give that out, but I'll do it again.
Oh, did you? Sorry.
Yeah, it's 858-233-9281.
Thank you. Well, please phone in. We have got quite a few people have emailed in this week. I shall ask you, Nathan. Do you have anything for us?
No, not this time around.
Oh.
Not this time around like you did last time.
Yeah.
Or any time before that.
Nathan, please keep insulting me, Joseph. Please continue.
Okay. Nathan, it is the Hysteria continues.
Exactly. Nathan, are you able to get up the Body Count Continues forum to have a quick look at the feedback from Criminally Insane? Are you able to do that on your setup?
Hold on just a second, and I will do that.
Okay. Well, if you have a look at that while we're reading some out, because I thought it'd be good to have a look at that. Erik, have you got anything for us?
I do indeed. I've got an email here from Jeffrey. Excuse me if I've mispronounced your surname, Jeffrey Canino or Canino. Sorry, Jeffrey. I'm from small town Ireland, so I'm not used to pronouncing these elaborate surnames. He says, Justin and Erik and Joseph and Nathan, greetings from New York. I've been a faithful listener of your fine audio program since sometime before the release of your Splatter University episode. My ears have been greedily devouring your back catalogue in the interim. With a plethora of worthwhile podcasts out there, I think it says a lot that I still tune to yours first whenever I need to wash the dishes.
What a compliment.
Yeah, I know. What a compliment. Yeah. Your program has been proving to be a detriment to my home life as my girlfriend is becoming increasingly frustrated over the fact that more often than not, I'm wearing headphones listening to your podcast and laughing to myself and failing to hear what she says to me over the joyful sounds of a cat flushing the toilet. I'm convinced that one day she'll come around. Maybe surprisingly, one of my favorite segments in your show is your recently watched films. I've gleaned a healthy amount of worthwhile recommendations from your collective movie watching. For one, I was convinced earlier this week to buckle down for a marathon of all 5 Final Destination films, all of which I'd been avoiding, but which turned out to contain exactly the right amount of fromage. But you've also encouraged me to seek out wonderful films like Exhibit A and Megan is Missing, both of which coincidentally made said girlfriend cry. Shame on all of you. If I may, I also have a suggestion for a possible top 3. One of my favourite aspects of certain slasher films is the distinctive aura of those isolated locations in which our heroes and heroines are ruthlessly slaughtered. There's a definite range of feelings these locations evoke in the viewer, from the dreary, rainy claustrophobia produced by the Slayer's Island to the warm and fuzzy innocence of the titular sleepaway camp. But regardless, it seems evident. I'm just scrolling down my Word document here. But regardless, it seems evident that the strength of some classic slasher films derives at least partially from where they take place. That said, I would be keen to hear your top picks. Anyway, I believe your show is an essential listen for horror fans, and I wish to thank you for providing it to us. Where else would I be turned on to hidden gems like Superstition and Killer Party? Carry on, gents. Jeffrey Canino, and again, apologies, Jeffrey, if I'm pronouncing your surname incorrectly.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Jeffrey. Did we do a top 3 location?
I don't think we have. No,
we have not.
I know that Joseph is very fond of anywhere where it's raining.
Yes, rain in a slasher film is like gold to me.
And woods horror forests in a horror in a.
Well, see, I think
slasher film.
it doesn't necessarily have to be. My number 3 pick is the woods. Maybe it could be my number 3 pick is how they use this specific location in this specific movie. That's actually a pretty good idea.
Yeah, I like that. Well, let's make a note of that. So, thank you, Jeffrey. Yes, that was good. A good idea.
Okay, I have one more, and it's from Brad. Hello, Brad. I'm just scrolling back up to the top here. This is very high-tech. Dear Hysterics, I had quite a haul for Christmas. Torso, Dress to Kill, The House by the Cemetery, Inferno, and Horror Express, all on Blu-ray, and The Initiation, Final Exam, and Humongous on DVD. Well, somebody obviously loves you, Jeffrey, because that's quite a bounty to have for Christmas. I had seen Humongous before on a terrible VHS rip, but The Initiation and Final Exam I had not seen. So now I am playing catch up with several of your episodes. I enjoyed High Tension, but I feel the twist is a cheat on the audience. I really like the Black Christmas remake. I was surprised actually by how much I liked it. Session 9 is, spoiler alert, very scary. In fact, it was scarier the second time I saw it, and I knew exactly what was going on. I prefer Cold Prey 2 to the first one, like you all do. I like Humongous quite a bit, even though it is like Madman Mars replacing Jason in Friday the 13th Part 2. It's still a good slasher film in my opinion, despite a thin script. I will say that perhaps another viewing is in order for me because maybe my excitement of seeing a much better copy of it coloured my opinion, but we will see. Speaking of Madman, I remember that Nathan and Joseph, I think, said in a previous podcast that they didn't care for Madman. I'd love to hear why, because I love it, and a dissenting opinion would be very interesting to hear. And to prove I don't just automatically like every slasher, I will say that, despite its great makeup and effects, I have never got into the burn-in. I located Criminally Insane and a sequel for viewing before listening to your podcast. Wish me luck. Good luck. Now I'm on to the Black Christmas episode. I'm excited. As always, I love the show. Keep up the excellent work. Oh, and a quick postscript. I didn't notice any pixelation on my Humongous DVD. I watched it on a Blu-ray player, and I was worried from what you guys had said before, but I was very pleased with the picture. And that comes from Brad. Well, thank you, Brad.
Okay. Thank you, Brad.
For that.
Thank you, Brad. I don't want to get into it too much about Madman, but I'm sure we'll cover that eventually on the podcast, so you'll get a full
I would have probably the same reservations as you do, Joseph, about Madman.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that could be an interesting choice. I'm sure we'll get around to it at some point soon. Thank you, Brad.
But I'm surprised at the amount of Blu-rays and DVD he got for Christmas. Somebody loves him.
Yeah.
Was that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Blu-rays and 3 DVDs?
Gosh.
You know what I got for Christmas? Nothing. So fuck you, Brad.
Yeah.
What did you get anyone for Christmas?
Yeah, Joseph.
I'm a giver. I'm not a receiver.
Yeah, right.
All right, you're a top.
Come on, you know that.
Matron, please. I'm not that kind of doctor.
Okay. And
that's
Joseph,
a Christmas
have you got
present
anything for
me.
us?
Thank you.
Have you got
So,
something for us,
Joseph, do you have any feedback for us?
Yes, I have a couple. This is from Brian Sammons. He writes and says, "Hey guys, I was happy to see you guys rise to the challenge. Oops, sorry, forgot about the double entendre ban of the 90s slasher top 3.
It hasn't lasted.
It didn't last. I knew it could be done, but come on, admit it. It wasn't easy. Anyway, I wanted to share with you my top 3, which I made when I heard you were going to do this. But before I listened to the podcast. So I'm not going to change my list to pick 3 that you may have overlooked. But first, kudos Erik for picking Cube. I totally forgot about that one, and while I would say it's not 100% horror, it is as horror or more so as the vast majority of Twilight Zone episodes. So I would definitely say it deserves a spot on this list. Okay, now for my top 3. Number 3 is Seven. Now, some would consider this a thriller in the same way they'll call Silence of the Lambs a thriller, but it is as dark, disturbing, and wonderfully icky as any horror movie ever made. It was also hugely influential on that Seven look, especially the opening credits. It's been copied and ripped off by countless movies since it came out. Number 2 is Tremors. More kudos to you, Erik, for giving this way fun monster movie some love. They simply don't make enough good monster flicks anymore, and I've also been partial to them. An honorable mention For another monster match would be Deep Rising. Yeah, I have to agree there. Another really fun wink and nod monster movie, and easily the best thing director Stephen Sommers has ever done. And for the number one, I have to agree with Justin about the Blair Witch Project. Simply put, it is one hell of a movie. Story time. I was lucky enough to see this movie before all the hype broke out in a little art house theater, the only one in my state that would bother to show it. And to hear the people walking out after it was over saying to each other, "Did that really happen? I heard it was real. You know that those people are still missing," etc., was great fun. Oh, and for an under-the-radar extra credit pick, I highly suggest Ravenous, a really weird and quirky movie with an insanely catchy offbeat soundtrack and the best cinematic cannibal since Hannibal. If you haven't seen this one, seek it out. Well, enough of me rambling. Great show as always, and I can't wait to see and hear what you all do next. Best, Brian Sammons. Thank you, Brian.
No,
thank you, Brian. Can I just interject on the subject of Seven? That's one that I completely forgot about. It's a film I really, really like. I don't know if you've ever had really, really bizarre double bill experiences, but when Seven came out, I was in college and I was living in a suburb of Dublin that the only thing in the area was a multiplex cinema. That was the only thing to do. So I went to see on a double bill Seven, followed by Father of the Bride Part 2.
Oh,
Have you ever had a more polar opposite double bill in your life?
I'm trying to think, Erik. I can't think of anything. I mean, I have seen some strange double bills in my time, I'm sure. But
well, I was desperate back then because I was living in digs. I don't know if that's a phrase they use in the States, but basically I was renting a room in a family house, so I wanted to stay away from there as much as I could. So I used to live in the cinema. So literally anything I'd go see.
Right.
Hence the reason of that sort of rather ridiculous double bill.
I think I probably did get some strange double, triple, quadruple bills when I worked at the cinema because one of the we would like swap around film to film. So I think I went from Candyman to Sister Act 2 or something.
Yeah. Was it a major chain you were working in, Justin? Or?
Odeon.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, in Brighton. Yeah. So that was I was just there for a year or so, but. When I finished college, but it was So I was.
Were the perks worth it?
Not really, no. It was all right.
I once watched The Evil Dead followed by Shawshank Redemption, so that's a little kind of opposite there.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Both are good though. Whereas Father of the Bride Part 2 certainly wasn't good.
No, Sister Act 2 was.
But anything to keep me out of the house.
Father of the Bride Part 2.
No, but I mean, I was getting into the cinema on my student discount, and anything.
What about Martin Short's incredibly moving "Mother and Daughter are working together,
you know what? I can't remember anything of Father of the Bride Part 2. I can't remember anything about it.
You need to go back and watch.
But back then, that was a stage in my life where I'd look down the listing in the multiplex, and there'd be 10 films a week, and I would have seen all 10. That's how much I didn't want to go home.
Wow. Okay.
My next pick for the podcast is going to be Father of the Bride 1 and 2, so you need to go back and watch them.
Oh, if I must.
This is the first anniversary and probably the last show we're doing.
Thanks, Joseph. You just ruined it for everyone.
God. I ruined it for everybody.
So who else have we got to go? Because I know Nathan's got a few bits from the forum. I've got a couple of emails. You got
Joseph with more? Do you?
Well, I got one more. I was supposed to read this on last episode, but Justin was pressed for time because it's a really long one. But I think I'll let Nathan go, and then maybe Justin, and I'll save this one for last since it's quite a lengthy one.
Ooh.
Nation, no, please, hold your hand.
Okay.
You can't even say anything. I mean, I can't even open my mouth anymore. Actually, I did not mean it. That did not mean that.
Anyway, enough of that.
Anyway,
Come on.
continuing on.
Come on, focus. Right, Nathan, what have you got? What can you glean from the forums?
Well, what I've gotten is Obscure Cinema says that it was a great podcast, as usual. And then he still needs to check out Criminally Insane and Crazy Fat Ethel, too. Although he's not really sure if he can make it through Crazy Fat Ethel, too. But then again, he did enjoy Last Slumber Party, and you all trashed that.
Well, if he likes Last Slumber Party, he'll love Crazy Fat Ethel, too. I'll give him that.
Awesome. Remy says it was a great podcast. And lastly, 42nd Street Freak says, another top show, guys, if a bit sedate thanks to the Killjoys. But I was honored to get my very own Kenneth Williams I weep tears of thankful joy. I probably could have sang that, but I don't know that song. Can't say much about the films, as shockingly and disgracefully I have let my 42nd Street credentials down by not yet seeing Criminally Insane, although I have seen the trailer. I see the 90s horror was, surprise, surprise, a bit of a struggle, with Erik having to skirt the genre even, but it was a welcome surprise that Erik chose the best of the films as his number one.
Which
I
was
love
what?
Erik.
Remind me what I chose?
I don't remember what you
Tremors. Is it?
Tremors.
Yeah.
Was it Tremors? Okay. I love Erik, but his taste in films is almost always the opposite of mine. So it was great to have the gloriously wonderful and oh-so-fun Tremors get top place. Although it being an 80s shot film may explain how it avoided the 90s horror curse. Tremors and Deep Rising make the ultimate fun-time monster movie double bill. Sadly, Justin, though, picked the worst of the bunch as his top. I hate Blair Witch. Tedious, annoying as hell, scary sticks, scary stones, badly plotted. We have to have a character throw the map away, and utterly implausible. Not a chance that these obnoxious cretins would still be filming any of this, let alone filming it good enough to play at your local multiplex. Only the first wreck and the mighty cannibal holocaust have ever truly justified people still filming things when such things are happening to them and theirs. And the fact so many of this film's audience actually thought this was real, WTF, sums up the foul stench that came from this film's unworthy success. And with that rant, I bid you farewell. Great episode, fellas.
Okay, well, some different views.
Who was that from again, Nathan?
42nd Street Freak.
Right. Yay. He's behind me and he's totally anti-Justin. Whoa!
No, he's not anti-me. He just didn't like my pick, did he? He says
he's anti-you through and through. Sorry? He's anti-you through and through.
He's not. He said he doesn't like most of your picks. Anyway.
He did say that, Erik.
Yeah. So suck it and see. Anyway, so enough of that. Okay, well, thank you, Nathan, for reading those out. I've got a couple of emails here. This one's from Suki. I presume she says, 3 words for your podcast, simply too good. Really shakes that nostalgia feel inside of me. Was wondering if you're considering doing a podcast for Hell Night, Just Before Dawn, The Mutilator, Curtains, Slaughter High, or Prom Night. Obviously, we have done Curtains a while back, but the others we probably will come back to at some point, hopefully soon. I know that's quite an epic list. Just wondered if there was somewhere in the future podcast. Other than that, thanks for creating something so real in its purest form, something quite amusing to escape to at times. Regards, Suki. So thank you for that, Suki.
Thank you, Suki Yuki Hot Sucky Sue. That's her name.
Yes.
That's what I'm naming her that now.
Okay, well, calm down.
Can I just interject? This is a proper tangent. This is a real 360-degree tangent. But I was watching a documentary about the British comedian Bob Monkhouse recently, and Suki Goodwin appeared on it. Suki Goodwin, of course, being the actress who played the British lady in Hell Night.
Oh, yeah.
That's Suki refers to. Because she apparently is the daughter of one of Bob Monkhouse's collaborators from the 60s and 70s.
Oh,
just thought I'd throw that in as an aside. And she still looks stunning. Yeah.
Oh, it's a recent thing of
it was 2009 or 2010 documentary by the BBC.
Oh, okay. Because she just seemed to vanish off the face of the earth.
She did, yeah. I mean, she gets decapitated, doesn't she, in Hell Night? Yeah,
but she's in Nightmares as well, isn't she? No, that's Jenny. That's Jenny Newman, isn't it? Yeah. Sorry, no. Suki Goodwin was just in that. I don't know if she was. If she was in anything
I don't think she was in much else. No, but I think she's brilliant in Hell Night. Yeah. As
that's interesting.
What's the actor's name with the floppy fringe? He looks like he's in Modern Romance. Vincent Van Patten.
Yes.
She's his boyfriend or girlfriend, even in the film.
Okay. Well, no.
That's my aside, anyway. Sorry.
Thank you.
Because I heard the word Suki and I heard the words Hell Night. So.
Okay, well, that's great. And I've just got one more. It's a little bit of a long one, but I won't give that a little thing. But this is from our friend Terry in Belgium. He's got a few questions for us. He says, "Hello, Justin. As usual, I listened to your podcast, Criminally Insane, and as usual, I found it interesting and entertaining. I'm always pleased to discover a new slasher or proto-slasher film movie. This one looks pretty gritty. I mean, you told it was a grindhouse kind of movie, and even if I do not have a good knowledge of the grindhouse films, I like Quentin Tarantino's movies related to the genre. this film has to be taken as a black comedy. I mean, I think you told that, not sure though. Well, why not? Because I like what I wrote in my last email. I also like my Gorgonzola. Your depiction of the characters makes me want to see it. Sleazy, borderline gross characters. The whore being slapped by a pimp. She drinks a booze, a cigarette in the bottle. Yuck, that's very classy, I must say. Which is a good summation, I think, of the joys of Criminally Insane. He also goes on to, he does say, and I think very perceptively, that I've not noticed yet that you were drunk. I don't think anyone else has ever noticed that any of us are drunk. So all of you, the podcast team, when you do your podcast, or maybe it's because English is not my mother tongue, so I suppose I've just not noticed that you were drunk or not. I'm drinking myself. I like my booze. I think you, Justin and Erik, are the two drinkers of the team, aren't you? So what would you think about that? I think that's probably...
Well, in fairness, we do record the podcast at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, whereas Nathan and Joseph recorded at 11 a.m. So
10
a.m. Sorry, it would be bad of them. It would be bad of them to be drinking, whereas it's acceptable for us, Justin.
Yes, absolutely. And I've only one little small glass of wine, but that is because I'm going out to Britain's largest restaurant tonight. Anyway, that's a little aside.
McDonald's?
No, of course not. No. Terry does say that he also just goes on. He seems to really love Uwe Boll. He says we should watch Seed, and I'm not that keen to watch it, but maybe one day we might get around to it. But what he did say, because obviously he says that obviously I did audio commentaries for Slaughter High and the Funhouse when Arrow's releasing, and he's asking what you guys, if you had a chance to do an audio commentary for any slasher film to be released on DVD, what would it be? Any ideas, Erik? What would you like to do?
Probably because my heart is so much in the Friday the 13th franchise, maybe part 2. I'd like to get together with maybe Russell Todd, Lauren Marie Taylor, maybe some of the people who don't get that much exposure. I'd like to get together with them to do a commentary.
Okay, yeah, that's a good choice. How about you, Joseph?
To tie Nail Gun Massacre and Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
that would be a fun one. What about you, Nathan?
Oh, there's so many. Killer Party, Friday the 13th Part 5, and Don't Go in the Woods.
What about you, Justin? I know you've done some already, but if you had to do another one.
I'm just trying to think, actually. I'd quite like to do Night School. Night School would be quite fun to do.
Yeah, well, with you and Rachel Ward.
Yes.
Trying to hold back exactly what you think about her performance in the film.
I know. Well, I had to do that a little bit on Slaughter High with Mark Ezra was sort of trying to make out, as lovely as he was, that he'd kind of come up with all these fantastic ideas of stuff that in the film that he thought was very novel, and I had to sort of say, oh, it was already done in Terror Train a few years back, and he said, was it? So I had to sort of skirt around and things like that quite a lot. But anyway,
the ultimate party pooper.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So well, no, thank you, Terry, for writing in as ever. And Joseph, do you want to get your long one out?
Oh yeah, let me roll it out here.
Oh, dear.
I'm not going to play a clip. I won't play it because otherwise we're just going to get in trouble, won't we?
Yeah. Okay,
take it away.
All right, this is from James. He posts on The Body Count Continues as Obscure Cinema 101. Before I read his email, he also has a series on the forums where he posts artwork from 80s slasher films, and he writes reviews and says he asked if they live up to the actual artwork, which is a pretty novel idea for a series of articles. But if you're not a fan, if you're not a member of The Body Count Continues, I'd suggest checking it out because they're very well written articles. But this is from him. It's, hey guys, it's me again. This letter might be a doozy, so brace yourselves. Lately, I've been catching up on a few films you guys have reviewed in the past, so I thought I'd share my opinions. House of Death. When I initially watched it, I didn't like it at all, but I rewatched it and knew what to expect, so I liked it. While it'll never be on my list of favorites, I found it to be an entertaining watch. Eyeball. I agree that its entertainment value lies within its cheesiness. I didn't think there was enough going on to keep me interested, though. Island of Blood. Joseph, I'm just letting you know that you're not alone in really liking this movie. I think I like it even more than you do, as I would easily give it an 8 out of 10, Gasp all you want, but I thought everything about this movie was really fun. The Last Slumber Party. Nathan, I'm sure you'll be happy to hear that I found this movie to be really enjoyable. Yes, it's the trashiest slasher movie I've ever seen in my life, but my stomach began hurting from my laughter. What really pains me is that despite the budget, this could have been at least decent. However, it felt as if the makers were going out of their way to make it as terrible as possible, and that's why I enjoy it. Anyway, in regards to your fantastic episode on Black Christmas, which I haven't seen in a while, but will definitely be viewing again soon, I noticed Erik chose Garbage Day for his number 2 holiday scene, even though I feel there is a scene in the film that is even funnier. That's the scene in the movie where they're at the movie theater and all traces of logic are completely tossed out the window. Also, here's a bit of trivia for you guys on Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2. The director was hired by the studio to recut the first film and re-release it into theaters. However, while going through the footage, he decided he wanted to make a sequel, so the studio gave him the go-ahead, and after 10 days of shooting, this is their little slice of gold. Oh, and here's my list of favorite non-slasher 80s horror flicks. The Keep, it's a 1983 Michael Mann film based on a book by F. Paul Wilson. Mann originally made a 3.5-hour-long movie that was supposedly completely faithful to the book, but Paramount stepped in and cut it to the 90-minute version that exists today. As a result, it's seriously lacking in plot, but the lush visuals and beautiful soundtrack by Tangerine Dream more than make up for it. I have to agree there. It's available for streaming on Netflix, so check it out. Number 2 is Creepshow. In my mind, Creepshow is a perfect horror film. It masterfully combines scares and humor into the best comic book movie I've ever seen. The sequel is also really good, but it can't match the popcorn fun of the first. I actually disagree there. Number 1, Dead Heat. Dead Heat is a buddy cop zombie movie featuring Treat Williams, Joe Piscopo, and Vincent Price. While it's debatable whether it's a straight horror movie or not, I still find it to be cheesy delight. If you guys haven't seen it, I highly recommend it to anyone who loves cheesy movies, and I think you guys do. To wrap things up, I'd like to suggest some things for future episodes. For the top 3s, how about you do all of your previous top 3s only with worst instead of best? For movie suggestions, how about Maniac Cop, Edge of the Axe, To All a Good Night, Blood Salvage, Don't Go in the Woods, and even though I don't consider it a slasher, there's a review of Without Warning on Hysteria Lives, so that would make a good episode. Thanks for continuing the podcast and taking the time to feature this and my other letter on the show. I know it's really long, but I promise I won't do it again. Well, not this long at least. After some consideration, I have come to the conclusion that you are by far the best podcast around. No other podcast I have heard packs so much entertainment into 2 hours. Actually, we're going well over 2 hours these days, but anyway, you guys succeed with a vengeance. My best, James.
Well, thank you very much, James.
Yes,
we have. We've gone over 3 hours.
Wow. This is our longest one yet.
Oh.
I would agree with him about.
Sorry,
getting back on top. I would agree with him about The Keep. I think The Creep has definite potential. I'd love to see a director's cut of that come out on DVD because it has, as he says, lush visuals and a great score by Tangerine Dream. I just think that in a theatrical cut, it's really, really disjointed and it's at times difficult to follow.
Yeah, no, I agree. I haven't seen it for years and years and years, actually. Probably not since it first came out on video, but I'd like to see, 3.5 hours is quite a lot to cut down.
It sounds quite long.
It's a birthday episode. We deserve it.
Yeah.
No, but
you're talking about the movie The Keep.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about the show for a second there.
We're going to cut this down to 90 minutes.
Yeah.
But, well, no,
just cut out all the awkward stuff. Just cut out all the disconnections for me.
Yeah. Well, what I do is just because, I mean, I think I was listening to another podcast that could be nameless, remain nameless at the moment, but they were doing Skype calls between 3 people, and I think the quality of that was much worse than we get most weeks. And this is, we don't have the luxury of having all 4 of us in the room all sat around a table with microphones, because that would be great, but we live on different continents and different countries, and so we don't have that, and it is a kind of like it's like I Want to Teach the World to Sing kind of podcast. We're all kind of holding hands across the continents, bringing all this. Isn't that bring a tear to your eye, Erik?
It does.
Come on, people now.
Coke.
Smile on your brother. Everybody get together.
Together now.
Exactly. So
I want to buy the world a Coke.
Well, considering that we have
no, because I don't have the money, so you go fuck off.
Oh, Erik, oh dear.
Sorry, that was a bit harsh. Sorry.
It was. You can't even afford a cherry Coke.
Not for everyone in the world.
Oh, right, I see. Right, okay. Right,
Yeah.
fair enough. I thought you meant for
I'd
yourself.
like to buy myself a cherry Coke, yeah.
Okay,
would you drink every one of them before you actually hand them out?
Yeah, that would work.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, no, to say, I think we better wrap it up because I'm going out shortly. And also, you're probably going to be... my computer's probably going to explode, and I think we've actually, funnily enough, we've just lost somebody, haven't we?
We have just lost 2 people, I think, have we?
Oh, no, we lost one person.
Lost Joseph.
Oops.
But I might keep that in. But what I'll do is we'll say goodbye, and we're going to play out with the marching band theme from Pieces. So until next time, see you later.
Bye.
Bye.